Welcome. Thank you for being here this evening. I'm calling the special meeting of the Town Planning and Zoning Commission to order on Monday, December 8th, 2025 at 6:35 p.m. My name is Jeff Kennedy. I'm the chair of the Woodbridge Town Planning and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission joining us tonight are Paul Schatz, Kathleen Hunter, Robert Wisnia, Ben Cherry, Aaron Hoffman, and Jim Horowitz. Andrew Skolnick will be joining us in the second part of the evening tonight when we go over the plan of conservation and development. Thank you very much for being here this evening. We are ably supported by Chris Sullivan, our town land using analyst and zoning enforcement officer. We're meeting in person in Woodbridge Town Hall. It's good to see all of you. Our special meeting agenda tonight is available on the town website. And tonight, we'll start with our continued discussion and appropriate action on the open public hearing for the 804 Fountain Street application. Following that, we have a work session for the plan of conservation and development. And those are the only two items that we'll be looking at tonight. This is a special session to cover only those two agenda items. First up is the continued discussion of 804 Fountain Street. You might recall that in our previous meeting, there had been some back and forth between the commission and the applicant. We held open the hearing to take in some additional information regarding architectural rendering change, some traffic details, and a memo and other data, which would include a second passenger elevator. With that, Mr. Nuff, John Nuff, the applicant's attorney, I will turn things over to you to present this data to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Nuff, 42 Cherry Street, on behalf of the applicant, Angelo Malisi. So yeah, there were several things that were left open from last Monday night. One was the ladder, and we provided some language this morning to Chris and to Mike D'Amato about the ladder, a certification by the NFPA. Happy to do that. Pat Rose is here. Not only was he able to change the exterior of the building and the roof line, but also was able to provide new floor plans to show the location of a second elevator. Then obviously there's the roof line issue, and also I think he took the opportunity to change some other things on the exterior, and he can walk you through some of those changes briefly. And then the last was the traffic memo from Matt Baldino, which focused on the question posed by Commissioner Horowitz with regard to sight lines for those coming down Fountain Street. And so that memo was provided, I think I emailed it yesterday, but it's in the record as well. So with that, I think maybe the most logical next person is for Pat Rose to walk you through probably the thing that has the most detail.
Makes sense. Go ahead.
Evening, Patrick Rose, Rose Tizo and Company, 35 Brentwood Avenue, Fairfield, Connecticut. We were asked at the last meeting, or made the suggestion that we make a change to the building associated with the elevations and try and make the roof line a little more pitched so that it would be a little more in keeping. We also said that we would add an elevator to the project. You have floor plans, which are large-scale floor plans. I'll just walk you through it real quick. So in the elevator, we've got a larger car here, which we had before. We've got a second elevator right here. So we've got it grouped together. So that is how we're going to attach that. Same thing in the main lobby on the first floor, that you've got two cars next to each other off of that main lobby. And the same thing happens on a typical floor, that you end up with this larger lobby space for the two cars. We've had to make a change to the studios. This was a one bedroom at one time. It's been changed to a studio, so you essentially lose 4 one bedrooms and gain 4 studios. Same number of units. We've got color copies of this, which are relatively small scale. I apologize, but that's the printer cooperated. What we've done is we've changed the roof line and started with the gables that start on the 4th floor, actually. so that you see the 5 gables on the larger pieces, which we have, using all the same materials that we previously were using. That we have a band of stone on the bottom, brick on these 5 gables for the first, second, and third floors, and then we've gone to shakes up in the gable and along the 4th floor, as opposed to we had board and batten at one time, but now we've gone to shakes, a little more residential. Tried to break down the scale of the length of the building with these 5 gables, and also put some intermediate gables up on the 4th floor that go into that mansard roof. We've been able to lower the height of that parapet by about 1 foot doing this, so we've got a 2-foot parapet currently at the lowest points. What we've done is change all the windows, so they're single hung windows. They're now no longer casement windows. Much more residential feel to the building, and change the roofing obviously is to a fiberglass asphalt shingle. That is, these colors you see on the larger scale are not exactly the right colors. We put this other elevation up just as to show you what the colors would be more like, the lighter tan and the browns for the shingles. So it's a little hard to show in what I was using to color it with. Better to show that. Same thing on, this is the side elevation, which is the same on both sides, except there's a garage door below that we've got 2 smaller gables with gables up on top and shingles all along that area. So, what I provided to you is the elevations that call out materials on these elevations in black and white. So you have copies of those that call out all the different materials. That we're using cement siding, and we're using cement shingles also, and brick and the stone. So those are all of them. And then 2 side elevations, one with the garage door, one with the fan. So those are the items that have changed per our discussion. Any questions? Be happy to.
You mentioned you changed the windows. What? I didn't quite catch.
The windows were casement windows previously on the previous elevation, and now they're single hung windows.
So, what is the difference in terms of egress from
They're similar in size. The egress is still, on most of these windows, will be an egress window, even though they're not necessarily required by code for egress windows.
See, most of them?
The only ones that won't are the smaller windows in locations like this, or they're in bathrooms or something like that, a kitchen or a bathroom.
Do you have a rear elevation?
The rear elevation is staying similar as it was previously. You really can't see the rear of the building. Change the windows, obviously, to the single hung windows, but it's all going to be all cement siding.
So if one were to look at it from the rear, it's a completely flat roof.
Yes, in the back, it's a completely flat roof, correct.
And where you're showing the pitch in the front, how far back does that go on that flat roof?
Oh, here?
Yeah.
It goes back 5-6 feet.
5-6 feet.
Yeah.
And the overall width of from front to back, what's that dimension? Just the flat surface of the roof, from front face to rear face.
It's 6 feet back.
No, I understand that. What's the total distance?
Oh, the total height of this?
Total width, or whatever that is, the total plane of the top flat part of the roof. If the flat part of the roof is like this, I understand you've got a pitch that's here that goes 6 feet.
You're going up 2 feet, and then you're
up here
sloping.
6 feet, and then what's this distance?
Oh, between, from
Front
Front to
plane
back?
to back plane.
if you're going 6 feet, it's 50 feet
50
deep.
feet.
that you have a flat roof.
A flat roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my
Right.
question.
Okay.
You said it much better than I
I
did,
got
thank you.
And can you just clarify, this picture that the commissioners have,
Yep.
this piece here, is this the front?
That is not the building. It is something that was done in Chat GPT to emulate the colors that they wanted.
Sorry, I missed that. Okay. All right, so this got emailed today, right? This piece, this,
It was along with the colored elevation, just to give you the color, the more realistic colors,
okay.
because it's a little hard to do in the medium that I was
That's
using.
what, okay, thank you.
So you said with the windows, the way these new windows, if there's an emergency, people can get out of them? Because you said before that the other windows, people couldn't
The
get
ca-
out of them.
Yeah, the casement windows, they could get out of them. You certainly can open them up and get out of them. They're large enough for that. So are the single homes. Actually, the casements are larger. Because it's the whole plane of the window as opposed to just half of that plane of the window.
But in an emergency, somebody could
Yes.
get out of the window.
Yeah, they're large enough that they can be used as egress windows.
Any further questions from the commission?
Was the rationale to change the windows based on aesthetics, or was it based on cost, or?
No, purely aesthetics.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, John Nuff, and by the way, I want to respond to Commissioner Horwitz's question. I think I know what you're getting at, which is, this arose from Mike DeMaro's comment. The applicant submitted a separate special exception application, a special exception request to allow for the proposed building to be constructed with a flat roof. Staff would suggest the applicant to consider revisions to the proposed building design that create the appearance of a gable, hip, or gambrel roof. So, I don't know, you'll have to decide whether we still need the special exception for a flat roof. My guess is you would say probably yes. And I think what Mike is saying is give the impression of a gabled roof or a peaked roof. So that's what we're doing. So I wouldn't want you to say, well, we're withdrawing that special exception application. I think you still need to vote on that as well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And if you want to hear from Matt Baldino,
The
he's
traffic.
here, or anything else.
On the traffic, so we got the commission got something today in the traffic, did it not, that got distributed today,
Yeah, I mean, we have,
right?
yes, correct. And it was specifically in reference to the question regarding the distance from a driver, the site distance of a driver on Fountain Street heading toward our site. And I think the memo does both, however.
Okay. I have no questions on this. Did you have any questions? Jim, you had
I
raised
do
it.
have one question.
Okay.
So, for the record, Matt Baldino, licensed professional engineer. We did prepare the memo kind of outlining both the intersection site distance and the stopping site distance, coming in both directions. Happy to
Understood,
answer.
and I appreciate you're doing that work for us. The revision seems to, there's a rock outcropping, I think that's removed in order to achieve those sight lines, is that right?
Yes, that was, the grading has not changed from the previous previous parts of
Understood.
the application.
Me-
But there will be removal of the rock that's in the right of way to achieve those sight lines.
Right, and in the absence of removing that rock, those acceptable sight line distances could not be achieved, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, that's it, thanks.
Yeah. So DOT would have to approve any of the removal of the rock within the right of way as it's under their jurisdiction and would be part of the encroachment permit application for that process to receive the sightline clearance by them as well.
Any other questions regarding the traffic sightline?
On the map that you have here, you have the line that says available sightline and required sightline based on the 80%. But which is the line that,
So just so that we're looking on the same sheet, we're looking at the ISD sheet in the bottom right-hand corner or the SSD sheet on the bottom right-hand corner. Do you know which sheet?
I think the ISD is.
Okay, so in the ISD, I'm gonna kind of walk through each of these. So in the top scenario, the line that's higher up with the arrow. So that is looking out of the driveway, looking left. So the available is the 585 feet, and then the required is the shorter 565 feet. Again, based off of 85th percentile speeds, so not the posted speed limit. Those are based off of people traveling down the hill at 51.
So the available is the one you're hoping to get from the highway department, is that what you're
So
saying?
the available is what the site has been designed, the grading across the frontage has been designed to achieve that. So that will be achieved through,
Through the highway department removing rock, is that?
we would remove the rock as part of the encroachment permit application with the DOT. So we would be responsible for for doing the work associated with achieving that.
I'm sorry, I asked this last meeting and I still don't completely understand, and I don't have to completely understand, but I want to have a conceptual framing. So the assumptions baked into this calculation are that the oncoming vehicle maintains a steady rate of speed at that 85th percentile. Is that correct? And the distance is the distance necessary for the person turning out of the driveway to gauge their speed and make a judgment about whether to proceed. Is that correct?
That is correct for the intersection site distance.
Okay.
And then the second figure that's included is the stopping site distance, which would be that vehicle decelerating before it approaches the driveway in the event that someone were to pull out of the driveway. It's their reaction brake.
Thank
stop
you.
time.
And the difference in those numbers is 330, so it's 565 and 335, is that right?
So I'm going to focus on the question that was primarily asked, which was traveling downhill of the
Yeah.
eastbound. Okay.
Yeah.
So that looking left out of the driveway for those, the required would be 600 feet,
Okay.
and we have 665 feet available. Next question is usually, well, what 665? What does that relate to in a speed? That would be 60 miles per hour of a speed limit from an intersection site distance. So we're at a 40-mile-an-hour road, so that's 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. I really hope no one's traveling at that speed.
They are.
Stopping site distance, which is the car approaching. Again, the design speed was 51.1 miles per hour, so I think we all admit people are traveling faster down the hill, and that would require 530 feet. So that's the 530 versus the 600 is the two required that we're comparing. And then the required there is the 530 and available is 600.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is for an average vehicle, you're not thinking about different size vehicles, like school buses, trucks, in terms of the stopping distance?
So when AASHTO creates these parameters and these design guidelines, this is based off of a passenger vehicle with a stopping site or reaction times that are based off of the average and conservative reaction times to make sure that they're providing safe distances. A larger vehicle may be traveling slower. In populations where you have a larger elderly population, you add to that time, but that wasn't the case based on the statistics of the population of Woodbridge, that we'd need to adjust those. So there are a few minor adjustments, but that analysis is created to provide a conservative analysis to account for some variability in those conditions.
The stopping distance that you just described, it's at 60 miles an hour. You would consume that full 600 feet that you've got. Is that what you're saying?
That 600 feet was the intersection. So the stopping site distance at 600 corresponds to 55 miles per hour.
Okay. And in the studies that were done, were there any cars that were going over 55 or 60 or 65 miles per hour?
There were a few.
What is anticipated in the way of street lighting on that road?
The road illumination would remain as is.
Which is what?
It is not currently illuminated.
Thanks.
In your experience, does DOT do any sort of post hoc analysis to determine the need for additional signage, warning lights, lighting, etc.?
Yes. So in my experience, similar to obtaining your CO from a building in a zoning enforcement office, you would receive a similar inspection from the DOT. At which point, again, they will verify to make sure that you can have achieved the required distances, and then they will also look at it to evaluate if there is the need for additional signage or different warning signage or things of that nature.
Thanks.
So you said that your construction group would remove the rock, not the DOT, they just, the DOT just approves what has to be removed and.
That is correct.
I see.
So procedurally, after this group is done, and assuming there is an approval, the DOT, you submit plans, the traffic plan to the DOT, and they bless it or alter it? Or do they wait until there's sufficient work done to come and inspect it?
No, so prior to doing any work within the DOT right away, that's including a construction access to the site, we would need an encroachment permit from the DOT. So that would require full plan submission of plans, traffic report, prior to any work being completed to do that. Any work within their property requires the permit before you do
So
it.
you submit basically everything up front to the DOT. They say yay, nay, or make these adjustments.
They provide you with a permit.
Yeah.
You post a bond. You may provide maintenance and protection of traffic plans that are also reviewed by them. Those would all be filled out with the application, and then you would receive your permit, do the work, and then upon completion, submit for completion, and then that requires the inspection before any of the bond or anything could be released.
And then at the end, the property's built, it's developed, it's rented. Does DOT ever come back and say, to confirm what they did was actually the case? Like, what happens if there's a mistake made along the way? How does it get rectified?
So that would be when they open, before we are allowed to open the driveway, they will complete all of their inspections as part of that process to make sure that all of these site distances are achieved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further traffic questions, folks? No?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Mr. Nuff, any further comments or from your team?
That's what we promised we'd come back with.
You did?
We did that, so.
Okay.
May I ask you a question, Mr. Chairman, about
Sure.
how this works procedurally? So I understand from Attorney Bamonte reminding us a few times that the applicant gets the last say in this process. A number of documents were submitted to us today, which I have to admit, I haven't had time to digest. I mean,
No one has. It just
long
came in.
documents. I don't know if Attorney Nuff and the applicant have been able to read and respond to these. So I'm just trying to understand how that affects the
I'm
process.
signed because May, June, was it? I predicted, it's like, let's not have a tennis match of report after report after report. And I said repeatedly, we will respond once every comment has been made, which we did. And we got more comments. So, yeah, I'm happy to respond. Frankly, nothing changes. The commentary about the traffic doesn't change anything. I'm happy to go through the case law again. Cambodian Buddhist is not applicable. That the language quoted was in dicta. The court ignored the traffic expert in that case, or the commission ignored the traffic expert in that case. There's a question about who has the burden of proof. I cited the Weed Street. Weed Street, yes, was an 830G. But when I told you that the intervener has the burden of proof on an intervention, that's what I was talking about, not the 830G that was the subject matter of Weed Street. So, listen, if you want us to go through it again, I'm happy to, but there's nothing in what was submitted today that changes anything, frankly, for us. I don't think it changes anything. You have a highly qualified civil engineer who I would encourage you to read through our materials, read through Mr. Trinkus's. Jason is here if you really want to hear his response to his comments. I think it's just the same thing that he has said before. You have Attorney Bamonte, you have your own town planner, all of whom can help guide you. You have your own traffic consultant who agreed with us. I mean, so I would avail yourself to those people who can offer their opinion on what we've submitted.
Thank you very much. let me answer your question. So, when we close the hearing, we still have access to Mr. Michael D'Amato, who's the town planner, he's staff. We have access to the town attorney, Nick, and access to Chris Sullivan to discuss the materials in front of us. We did receive some things today. I thought I would read them into the record. Chris distributed this. Chris, is this everything we received in terms of emails, or everything else that came in from the last meeting?
Yes, and
So-
it includes an email from a citizen.
Okay, so I'm going to read these into the record, okay, Mr. Knopf? And then we'll move on from there.
I mean,
All right?
and when you say read them, you're just going to cite what they are.
Yes, I'm not going to read all of them,
Thank you.
unless you'd like to hear me read all this material.
I think I'm good.
I can hear you read them all.
So, would you?
Sure, we go to our pizza.
I'll meet you later. All right. So received since the last commission meeting for 804 Fountain Street, the hearing continuation dated today of December 8, 2025. The following submissions also come in. We recognize that they're now part of the record, they're part of the written record. So we have a sightline analysis from the applicant, which came in, and all the folks here have it. Chris, these are also on the website, right?
They should be posted.
Or they will be.
tomorrow because they
It
kept
came in
coming
today.
until-
Nope, absolutely. Revised sheet A-100 from, and that's from the architect, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Revised sheet A-201, also from the architectural firm. Revised sheet A-202, also from the architectural firm. We have a colored sheet showing the revised elevations of the building. We have a picture of the building facade option, which has been submitted. We have an email from Attorney John Nuff and Architect Patrick Rose addressing changes due to the addition of a second elevator and the donation of a ladder to the fire department. We have an email from Architect Patrick Rose regarding roof line changes. We have a letter dated December 8, 2025 to the Commission from Attorney Brenton Elliott, legal counsel for the interveners. We have a letter dated December 7, 2025 to the Commission from Chinkas Engineering. And we have an email dated December 8, 2025 from Mr. James Urbano, and that is also part of the public record, correct?
Correct.
Mr.
Oh,
Chairman, could I suggest
please.
one slight amendment?
may.
Rather than characterizing this as a picture of the facade option, could we perhaps call it a rendering to indicate the materials and color scheme, given that it's not representative of the actual structure?
That's fine with me. So it's a nomenclature change, Chris, to the description of this submittal. All right, we're gonna hold right there. Nick,
Yes, sir.
so given where we are, what's come in, review all of this material, in my view, I feel that we have sufficient data to make a decision at this point. Do you want to respond to that? Do you think there's anything else I should do before the commission starts to think about closing the public hearing?
Well, Mr. Chairman, you've certainly received a wealth of information. There's been sufficient opportunity for responses for all parties involved. So, I mean, at this point, I know that the planner, with my input, has prepared some draft motions for consideration, both motions to approve and a motion to deny. Those are not in a final form at this point. It's going to take some additional input from the commission, which we can at least start doing tonight, after the hearing's closed, if that's where the commission wants to go. But legally, I think, yes, the commission's in a place where it can close the hearing at this point and move on to more substantive discussion with the assistance of myself, with Chris, and the planner.
Good, I intend to do that. Any comment from commissioners? Okay. So I want to thank the staff for managing the public hearing and the submitted materials that have come in from all of the people that have provided us materials on this application over the past few months. I want to thank the commissioner and the commissions for evaluating the submitted materials that have come in. Some of it just came in today. We're all aware of that. Thank you for engaging and listening to the applicant, with the interveners, the public, and the staff. I look forward to moving our deliberations forward into a work session, and we'll work on these motions in a few minutes here. I want to thank the applicants for the information that they've provided and the responsiveness and the presentation throughout the process and the various willingness to engage with the commission and answer our various questions. I appreciate it very much. Thank you also to the public who's been coming and talking with us and having a public dialogue, and for submitting data to the commission and to the town over the past few weeks and months. With all those things said, we need a motion to close the public hearing for the applicant, for the three special exceptions for the application for a special permit for the excavation of the property, special exception for the site plan to construct a multifamily development, and a special exception to modify the requirement for a gable hip or a gambrel roof as permitted by section 345 of the regulations. So all that said, we need a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm sorry, did Jim second
It was simultaneous in my ears.
it? Jeez.
It was yelled, in fact.
So,
That's why I couldn't tell.
So we have a first and we have a second on that motion. Or we want a discussion?
Hang in 2 seconds.
Please,
We
take your
have to
time.
note that this evening, Sarah Locke would have been up in rotation. She excused herself. She's not in state at this point. So in going around, Kathy Hunter is seated this evening.
Very good. All right, thank you. Okay. So we have a first and second in motion before we vote. We have some discussion, Dr. Sherwood.
so I just want to make sure I understand, in the sake of fairness and process, that we are giving everybody their due sort of, time. I just want to understand that it seems to me that Attorney Nuff indicated that the information he provided at our last hearing and his assessment of the information that we received today is sufficient and can be considered, that the applicant has had the final opportunity to respond to the materials in our public hearing. Because, I have not had a chance to go through these rather long documents that were sent to me.
There will not be a vote this evening
Yeah,
on the final application. We are closing, I'm with you.
yeah.
I haven't either. I got materials all day long. Ben, I saw 2 or 3 of these pieces of paper
Sure.
at 3 o'clock this afternoon, all right? We all want to bring this to a conclusion, but the right thing to do is to go slowly and carefully and read all the material that has come in, to be respectful of the applicant, the people in the town, and all of our regs, and to make sure we apply all of this legally and properly, to read all the data from the interveners and everybody else. Yes, we will not be voting tonight. I know that folks want to bring this application to a conclusion, but we have to do it in the right way. So absolutely correct.
I just want to understand and ensure that if the applicant wants an opportunity to provide a written reply to these documents, that they're afforded that opportunity. But it doesn't sound like they necessarily feel that they need that. They presented their assessment of the information supplied by the intervener so that this process is fair.
Well, once we close the application, I'll let Nick maybe once we close it, that's it. We can talk to, we can speak to our attorney, we can speak to Chris Sullivan, we can speak to our town planner and discuss different things among the material, of which there is a significant amount. But once we close the hearing, you can't take in any more discussion. And that,
Understood.
that per the law makes it fair for everybody involved.
I think it sounds like Commissioner Cherry's point is really just to ensure that everyone, including the applicant, has had sufficient opportunity to respond to what was some new information from the interveners and one member of the public. Attorney Nuff is here. He said to the commission that, he's basically the submissions don't change anything. Attorney Nuff, if you have anything else you want to say, but I think it is in the interest of the commission to move things ahead, just given the very tight timing. I don't want us to engage in dialogue about what the motions maybe will eventually look like until the hearing has been fully closed. So maybe put it to Attorney Nuff one more time just to be extra clear, but I think we are in a position to close.
Would you permit that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, Chris, or Nick, or Jeff,
Sure.
if anything comes in a second after the public hearing is closed and we vote to end it, what happens to that information?
It can't be considered by
So it
this
gets
committee.
deleted.
Correct.
It does not get circulated among anybody but press.
It's not part of this commission's
Yeah.
record that it's basing this decision on.
Okay.
commission scan the room to see if there's anybody that they want to hear anything from?
I don't know if there's been sufficient opportunity that the commission has granted. I mean, again, it's the commission's decision. You heard Attorney Nuff. I mean,
There were
we're
people
trying
that were
not
present
to,
last week that might have something to say that is critical.
I think it's the commission's call at this point if it's given the public sufficient opportunity to respond to everything that's been discussed.
But the fire chief is here.
The fire chief had ample opportunity to respond in writing and in person on multiple occasions.
But there was
And
conversation last
so
week.
I feel, and I will listen to other commissioners, that we have a complete public record sufficient to close. Mr. Schatz, do you feel otherwise, or anybody else
Yeah,
want to?
I mean,
Because this will go on forever, Mr.
just
Schatz.
what I was gonna ask you
Please.
is, if we allow the fire chief to speak, which I have total respect for the fire chief,
All right.
then are we obligated to listen to other members of the public because we're still, now we're starting we're continuing the public hearing, and then does the applicant then have a right to respond other than tonight?
Well, I mean, my understanding is that the fire department has been apprised of everything that is transpiring in these proceedings, and there has been opportunity to render comments. That being said, it's been a week since we were here last, and there are some new submissions. If the commission permits the fire chief's testimony, is that going to prompt the need by the applicants to feel to respond to that? Yes, possibly. And I think we should provide that opportunity if that's how it works out. It's gonna possibly make, if we have to come back again for the applicant to effectively render that final rebuttal, it's really gonna be putting a squeeze on how we can really craft this decision in a way that, really how this commission feels. That being said, I mean, you polled the room here. We know at this point the fire chief is here, probably salient information. I mean, I would suggest let the fire chief talk, and if the applicant wants time to respond, then we'll have to figure it out.
Can I just ask a procedural question?
I just want to know the ground rules, because if it's the fire chief and the public, again, this is precisely what I tried to avoid this
No,
past summer.
Mr. Nuff, we acknowledge that. Listen, we'll have the fire chief speak for a couple minutes. It makes sense to the chair. And then if you want to say something afterwards, but Mr. Nuff, your point about avoiding a tennis match is well taken point by this committee and by the chair, and we'll move to get it done. We've had a lot of public comment on this matter.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
point of order, we're discussing the motion to close the public hearing. My suggestion to my fellow commissioners would be that we vote down that motion respectfully. Commissioner Schatz?
So if that's what you want to do, I'll just withdraw the motion then, rather than having to vote on it.
But we're,
Hold on, Paul. Do we have to withdraw that motion, or can we just keep the motion open? And
No, you have to withdraw it.
You can withdraw the motion.
You have to
we
withdraw.
can, or we have to?
You have to.
The original mover can withdraw the motion.
I withdraw the motion.
You withdraw it, okay. All right, so the commission will hear from the fire chief, and then Mr. Nuff may have a follow-up to that, and then we'll go back to a motion to close. All right, fire chief, please.
Fire Chief Sean Roll, Woodbridge Fire Department. I think during this whole process, I came in the meeting in June and spoke on some concerns myself and the fire marshal had. The fire marshal lives out of town, so it's easier for me to respond and come. But these are conversations I have with him, and it's a joint venture. I was away last week, out of state working. I did see the meeting and online. I did have some concerns because there were a lot of misconceptions that was talked about with the fire department. One, we don't have a problem necessarily with the building or whatever else, so we're looking strictly on a fire standpoint and on a suppression standpoint along with prevention. So when we looked at this plan back in June, we met with the applicant. on 6/25. We voiced our concerns. We had a bunch of questions, which I voiced at the meeting. We met. We talked about it. They were going to come back to us with a proposal, with basically a memo, basically laying out their our concerns with their answers, and then we would talk about it. As it went through, watching the meetings, in October, there was a meeting that was held with you guys, and there was a lot of talk about the fire department. I was at the firehouse for a call. We had the TV on, I was watching it. And once again, the fire department's talked about, but from that point, from June 25th, when we met with the applicant after your meeting, to October, we have not received the responses yet. Right after that meeting, the next day, all of a sudden, we were forwarded on the responses, which were dated August 18th. So when I watched the meeting last week, and then October was an extremely busy month for us, it always is, because it's fire prevention for all the schools, and we go see roughly 1,000 kids throughout. So October was an extremely busy month for us. There were 2 emails that were sent out by Chris Sullivan, and the last memo that was stated, and I have all the emails here. Your acknowledgement of this receipt and email and confirmation that the commission can anticipate your review and comments of the 804 Fountain Street application can be completed and submitted by November 24, 2025 in advance of the December 1, 2025 hearing continuation would be appreciated. Sincerely, Chris Sullivan. So that's coming from you, in theory. So we submitted our concerns based on what we got on October 15th from those concerns, and we answered those concerns, and we presented them back to you by memo on November 24th. So when I watched the meeting last week, it's concerning that it was stated that we had months and months and months to look at this, and we prolonged it. So that wasn't the case here. We got it on October 15th, we responded November 24th. We did have concerns on the turn radiuses. We still have concerns on the turn radiuses. That's why we asked for an engineer to look at it. Even if we have the design up, I understand we might be able to make that swing in. It doesn't really tell us what the turn radius is. It tells us what the radiuses are on the islands. But even if we were to get the truck in, I don't know, and the fire marshal has the same concerns, how we're going to be able to get the truck back out. So when we look around the whole parking lot, it doesn't look like we have the same turn radius coming out, which we may and we may not. We're not engineers to sit here and do it. These are our concerns. We also had a strong issue with the parapet wall on the top of the roof, and it was a question we raised back in June about the height of the parapet wall, because originally I think it was 5 or 6 feet tall. They said it got reduced, but it was never told to us what the actual height was reduced to it. So by getting up there and talking about a roof, we'd be looking to put a 100-foot tower truck up and basically jumping from that tower truck 6 feet down, because the bucket can't go down to the roof. You'd have to literally jump off the parapet down onto the roof, and that raises some safety concerns for us. That's what we're bringing up. Why is the roof so important? You got 96 condensers up on the roof, and something's always going to go wrong with one of them. It's the habit, and we end up having to get up on the roof quite a bit. Roof access from below, maybe there's roof access from below. The other thing is, I understand the ladder truck's not going to get around the building. I totally understand that. Fire marshal understands that. We carry a 35-foot ground ladder on the truck. A 35-foot ground ladder, it's not a ladder that you go to Home Depot and buy. It's a fire service rated ladder. It takes 4 guys to set up a 35-foot ladder. That's what we carry. This is a whole new ballgame for the fire department here, and it has nothing to do with the applicant or the project. It's a 4-story building, so to be able to get up 4 stories to that 4th window, you would need a 50-foot ground ladder. A 50-foot ground ladder would require 6 firefighters to bring it around the building, to carry it, bring it around the building and set it up. That constitutes a lot of manpower to do something like that. Not many departments carry a 50-foot ground ladder. I've used a 50-foot ground ladder. They are extremely heavy and bulky. to walk around the entire building to set that up. We do have concerns, and once again, this is also new to us because we don't have a 4-story building in this town that we're protecting. So we do have concerns on safety, on removing occupants from that top floor. So this is new to us. We're going through it. We did have some other concerns. There's a fire cistern that's on the property that looks like it's buried. We have city water coming in, so our concern was why, if we have city water, why do we need a tank in the ground to hold water for the fire suppression system? Is there enough pressure coming in? Is there enough volume coming in? So, and these are all issues that RWA, according to the applicant, has to address, and they're gonna come up with what the pressure is, volume is, and everything else. So when I look at this, we're also a volunteer department to carry a 50-foot ground ladder all the way around the back. It's not as easy as going and buying a 50-foot ground ladder. I don't have room on a truck to put a 50-foot ground ladder. When these trucks are designed, they're designed for the specific ladders that we're carrying, whether it be a 35-foot, a 28-foot, 14 or 16-foot roof ladder. They're all designed that way. So by buying a 50-foot ladder really doesn't do us any good unless you're going to leave it on site. But these ladders are constantly tested. Once a year, they have to go through a rigorous program, and they have to be certified. They have stickers and everything else. So it's not like there's a ladder that could just sit there and be housed outside, and when you need it, you're going to go and grab it. It doesn't work like that in the fire service. So it is concerning to us. We're not expecting the truck to get all the way around the building. We do need access in the back of the building. I believe they've done that. Our concern is how we're gonna get up to the roof and how we're gonna get up to the 4th floor. And I want you guys to all realize that a sprinkler system is not designed necessarily to put a fire out. It's designed to contain a fire, and it gives the ability to have everybody get out of the building and to get out safely so the fire doesn't spread. That's the real thing of a sprinkler system. A sprinkler system, if the sprinkler system were to put every fire out, there's no need for a fire department. You would just sprinkler a building. That's not that's not the design of a sprinkler system. It's there to allow people to give plenty of time to get out of the building and contain the fire wherever that is in that structure. So we still have concerns. All our questions, when we replied back to the memo, our concerns still weren't 100% addressed, which some of them could come at a later point when they come for permitting and in that area. But on the same token, we do still have concerns on turn radiuses and the height of the building, a parapet wall, which is still a big concern to us. But I wanted to set the record straight that the fire department didn't drag its feet, and the fire department did not respond, or the fire department had ample time. We have followed your timelines, and we have done everything we've been asked for, and we're trying to do it. Now, I'm sorry I can't make every single meeting, or the fire marshal can't make every single meeting, but if there are questions, should be asked, not come to a public meeting and talk about the fire department without the fire department knowing. And this isn't the first time last week that it's happened. It's happened multiple times before, and if we're gonna talk about the fire department, somebody from the fire department needs to be here. If we're gonna talk about the police department, somebody from the police department needs to be here. That's just how it works. It doesn't work on hearsay and everything else.
Mr. Chief Rowan, thank you for your comments. Any commissioners have a question or two?
Chief, thanks, Chief. So did you know the applicant offered to, I don't want to steal your words, donate, supply a ladder? I didn't, all the technical stuff's way above my pay grade, but I don't know if you guys had spoken since last, okay. So I don't know, maybe the applicant could let you know what they offered to donate or supply and how that would work.
Yeah, that came in today, Chief Rowan. We have some documentation that they can share with you, but that did come in today.
Documentation that refers to the fire department just doesn't get to the fire department all the time or when it eventually comes in. So like we have a memo dated August 18th. We got it October 15th, I want to say. It was in October. So we were never CC'd on it, but it's amazing when we come or I come and question at a meeting, the next day, all of a sudden, an email is found and we get an email on it. So I don't want the fire department to look like we're dragging our feet, because we are not dragging our feet. I have all the emails and the documentation and the backup to back it up. So when we sit there and make comments about the fire department, yeah, it's pretty disturbing.
It doesn't sit well with you. Listen, the commission recognizes the need for communication in the town of Woodbridge to make sure that it's seamless and that there's a good back and forth. We know your points. I can look into that as a separate matter apart from this application, but I do appreciate you taking the time to come out tonight and share this information with us.
And
Thank
for the
you.
record, as long as I've been here, nobody up here has criticized the fire department.
No,
Right, I just want to make sure that's,
There- there are people-
we're thankful and supportive.
We had people from last week that got up and spoke against the fire department, or spoke that we had ample time and we had plenty of this. I just want to set the record straight, and I have all the emails and memos and everything else that dictate exactly the timeline and what we had and what we responded to, and we met your timelines, and we followed your guidance.
Chief, I have one more question.
Sure.
So, thank you for coming and speaking to us. You mentioned a couple minutes ago, it sounds to me, so I believe it was last week, we got a document that had responses to your questions. I'm sorry, there was,
Yes, there were responses. We asked questions back in June.
Yes.
We got it in October, the responses in October.
yes,
We responded to those comments, that answers that
the applicant is.
the applicant gave us. We replied back with other ones, and this is where we are.
So that I understand the timeline, you replied back in November, and then last week, I believe there were additional responses or replies to your questions. And I think you
Yes.
are aware of those, because you said that your concerns weren't 100% addressed. So because we're in the 59th minute of the 11th hour,
Yep.
I just want to make sure I understand the substantive points of your continued concern. It sounds like the truck's turning radius
Yes,
and the height of the parapets.
the height of the parapets. Do you know the height of the parapets?
I believe Mr. Rose just said 2 feet a few minutes ago, which to me sounded like a significant improvement from 6 feet, because I certainly wouldn't jump off anything 6 feet high. So I don't know that we will resolve every substantive concern that you have before we move to our
And
deliberations.
that's fine, and
Yeah.
some of them don't hit this commission, and we understand that. It was questions that we raised to the applicant back in June, so we're not looking for every one of those responses coming back from you. It was more directed at the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
You said that your trucks can't carry this 50-foot ladder. You need a
So
different-
when we design a fire truck, you design the truck to the length of the ladder. So we don't have a truck currently that would be able to hold a 50-foot ground ladder. We don't. We have a truck that holds a 35-foot ground ladder, but we don't have one that holds a 50-foot ground ladder. So on top of a ladder, you would need to modify a truck, and it's not an easy task. And we're a volunteer fire department here, guys. So we run during the day. We get people, but we struggle to take 6 people out to bring in a ground ladder all the way around the back is going to take time, and it's going to take manpower and everything else. Something else is going to suffer.
I'm not trying to
And
be, yeah.
this is just, and once again, this doesn't really have to do with the applicant. We're also talking about something new to us, we're new to the town. We're talking 4 stories here, where we've never talked about that before, and we didn't really have the issue, so our equipment would be sufficient for something that was currently done.
I'm not trying to be clever, and I don't understand professional standards of practice in firefighting and fire
Yep.
safety, but because you point out this would be a unique building of its kind, it would be the only one to require this ladder. Is there any possibility of storing that ladder on site?
So, like I said, it all has to do with how it's stored, where it's stored, access to it. It needs to be maintained, it can't be out. Ladders can be in extreme heat when you're fighting a fire, but as soon as a ladder gets stressed or it's up to heat, it automatically comes out of service, has to get retested. Meaning, it gets stretched out totally, it gets weight put on it to a braking force, and there's a formula for bending, and if it exceeds that, the ladder's garbage, you throw it out and you start all over again.
So,
But you
yes.
can't, with saying that, it also can't be out sitting in extreme heat or extreme cold
Sure.
for long periods of time either.
So just because we're trying to satisfy different competing needs at this point in time. If the
You're gonna, I know the question you're asking, and I don't have the answer for it, so I don't wanna.
Well, I was going to ask if the applicant were able to make to create the conditions for proper storage of a ladder of this type for its intended purpose and its required, maintenance and care, would that go some distance to alleviating your concern?
I would wanna check.
You'd want to know what the final.
I need to research it a little.
Understood.
Bit. I don't know what that.
I would just
don't
like
know
to-
what that looks like.
Yeah, I just want to understand, because we're in a position, to make a big decision. We don't know what the outcome of that decision is going to be. If the decision is to approve these special exception permits, I want to understand that, you and the applicant are going to be able to work together on creating the conditions. It's to me, this is not a binary thing. This is like, how do we get to the best outcome?
Yep.
Whatever path we end up going down. So, thank you.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask one? The state fire code, so has the 3 sides for the truck access. Is that
Okay.
correct? So is there anything in the fire code requiring, and the donating the ladder was my idea, so I really hope that would work, but that's, and I like Ben's suggestion of maybe, figuring something out, and if that's something that is an option, that'd be great. If you come back to us and say there's no way, that's reasonable as well. But are there structures where you're unable, with a ladder or otherwise, to reach all 4 sides?
Another building in town?
In general, I mean, because there are buildings that are on a cliff or whatever. I'm just trying to weigh if the obviously the best case would be the ladder truck could get all the
Yes.
way around, and then maybe the second best would be a
So
ladder.
the truck doesn't have to get all the way around the building. So we could still access the front, the sides of the building, and we can do what we need to do. One of the concerns we had in this whole application was the height of the parapet wall. The
Yeah.
height of the parapet wall is down to 2 feet. That's something manageable. If we're 5, 6 feet, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6 feet tall, I'm gonna tell you, there's no way somebody's gonna get hurt, or it's gonna take. It's a bit of a concern, right? So we're not expecting to get all the way around the entire building. We are expected to throw some ladders on the backside of the building. Now, that being said, we may not have manpower to throw a 50-foot ladder up to the 4th floor to rescue people out of the back of that fourth floor window. We're gonna do what we can do, but on the same token, 3rd floor down is more practical and more realistic. That's where our concern is from a suppression standpoint in a building like that. You gotta realize, this is new to you, this is new to us. And
Yep.
right now, we don't have the proper equipment to do something like that right now. Not saying that it won't change, but right now, we do have some concerns on it.
And is this the kind of thing where,
So let me just put it also in perspective. So when I'm talking about a ladder truck or ladders and all this testing, right? So we're relying on a 1992 ladder truck right now, which the town is looking to purchase a new one, hopefully in the very near future. But even if we were to purchase a new one, we're looking at probably 4 years out,
Yeah.
because they have to build it, and the lead time on a truck is roughly 3 to 4 years right now. So to rescue people off a 4th floor or whatever using the ladder truck, we're band-aiding the truck together now, and that's where our concern also comes in. So there's some concerns that we have that you guys necessarily wouldn't have, but we need to voice our concerns to figure out how we're gonna treat a building of this size.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the size of the building, because
Yeah.
the high school, we can handle. High school's 287,000 square feet.
Yeah.
We can do that, and we've been up on that roof, we can do all that. When we start talking about a 4-story building plus a 5 or 6 foot parapet wall or 4 foot parapet wall, it does raise some concerns.
No, certainly.
And we did talk about, and they replied back, we had questions on EV chargers in the garage.
Yeah.
They eliminated those, which is a really good move, because we wouldn't have access to that. If we do have a fire in the garage, we do have concerns on how those fans operate. Are they working on carbon monoxide? Are they tripping in that way? Are they tripping if there's a fire? how are those fans going off? But once again, this doesn't really concern this. It's more of a concern that we have on the fire end of it, on how we would be able to control that. We did have concerns on the stairwell locations,
Yeah.
where they were in the back of the building. They moved them up to the front of the building, which made a lot more sense. So there are different things that were done that
Yeah.
made a lot more sense. But we do have concerns based on the size of the building and the height.
And my final, this is something, we have this application, there are other applications that'll come before us that will have varying degrees of the ability to, to enter into negotiations with a developer. You talked about, you're getting a new truck, hopefully, and it's something obviously
We hope so,
happy to
we don't know.
support. Is this the kind of building that, I know there's the mutual aid, other fire departments, is this something that, like New Haven, if there was a fully engaged fire there, is that
So
something?
New Haven doesn't really respond. If they're out on a call or they're busy, they won't come up. We had the fire at the GCC back in 2016, 2017, where we called multiple companies to come in. You gotta realize that a ladder truck or something significant takes time to get here, even though you go lights and sirens, right? So if we get down, we confirm it's a fire, we're hearing that it's an actual confirmed fire. Just like we had with the GCC, we started calling mutual aid right off the hop. And even for a house fire, we call for mutual aid right off the hop. But you gotta remember, they're also, some of them are volunteer companies that surround us, which if we were to call Orange, you're looking at, we called Orange for their ladder truck at the GCC, it took 20 minutes to get there. Now, a fire doubles in size every 30 seconds. So if you start with half this room on fire, in 30 seconds, the other half of the room is gonna be on fire. That's just a fact. So we live that, we know what that number is. We also call for a lot of tankers in town. We call for other towns for tankers because only 10% of our town has hydrants. So tankers usually take about 12 to 15 minutes to get here, just like a ladder truck, and sometimes even more, 16, 18, 20 minutes. New Haven, we called New Haven. Orange beat New Haven here because they were out on a call. So you got to realize, depends on what's going on. You can't rely on mutual aid as your first due engine in. So usually when you go to a fire, your first trucks in are really setting everything up. Your other trucks in are supporting your trucks that are already in. So we lay LDH, large diameter hose, down the driveway. It's like dumping a portable water main on top of the road and into a driveway. Once we put that in, you cannot drive over that. You would have to shut the line down to be able to drive onto it. And then when we look at something like this, to get a second ladder truck in would probably be almost impossible, because the way this would be set up is we'd have our aerial in, we'd have another engine in that would feed the complex and feed the ladder. So to bring another truck in is not practical. It would be more of a support truck that would either be out in the road or would be covering the town somewhere else while we're out dealing with an issue.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nuff, did you want to have anything to end with on that?
Yes, briefly, and I think Pat's going to probably respond more with regard to substance. On the issue of turning radius, the chief had asked Jim Preddy to opine on whether the turning radius was sufficient. He did send an email that's sent to Chris. We put into the record, said it was. We talked about the parapet wall. Sounds like that's been resolved because it's 2 feet, is not higher than that. The fire ladder, be happy to donate that. Happy to work with the chief to find the location so that it's safe, it doesn't in any way impact its integrity. I think that's a fairly simple matter. I want to be clear, based upon Pat's email or memo from last time, it's not required to have a ladder or to evacuate people from the 4th floor, because it is sprinkler. As the chief said, the goal of a sprinkler is to make sure that the people can evacuate. And we comply with that fire code requirement, and I didn't hear anything that they couldn't evacuate safely. That's the purpose of the suppression system. Pat testified last time with regard to the tank and the suppression system that we can't get a building permit or CO until we demonstrate that we're gonna have sufficient pressure, not only for the fire, but for domestic service as well. So, Patty, if you wanna, fill in my blanks, but I think that, responds to the big items.
No, I think John went through it fairly simply. The parapet has been reduced from 5-6 feet to 2 foot. We understood the chief's concerns about that, and redesigning the building actually allowed us to drop another foot to get it down to 2. The ladder itself, I think we can come to some type of agreement as to where we could store it, how it could be protected from extreme heat, extreme cold. I know it has to be tested. It's very rigorous to have a ground ladder for fire apparatus to be used. And I understand the 6 people having to lug it around the building. It takes up a lot of manpower. The fire system has to be worked out with the Regional Water Authority. We've got tests. They know what their pressures are. We know what the pressures are. We are working with engineers to try and come up with a system that we are going to store volume of water, gets pumped up to those storage tanks, and then gets pumped up to the building itself. So that's something, and that can't get a building permit without that all being worked out and figured out, and the chief and the fire marshal's concurrence. So I think we can work out our open issues that we have currently with them.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose, I do have a question for you. The illustration that you gave us tonight, which shows the front elevation, that parapet is the dark, that everybody's referring to as the parapet, that's the dark brown at the very top of the illustration.
Yeah, this is the parapet. The trusses, the top truss is down below that 2 feet.
And what we are looking at, is that to scale? Does this accurately reflect what the...
It reflects where the truss is. There's also probably 6 or 8 inches of insulation on top of that. There's a sloped roof that's pitching to the middle, so it's showing you where the truss is and it's showing you where the top is. It doesn't show where the insulation is.
So I guess, I'm not an architect and I don't understand architectural terms. I'm trying to learn. So when the elevator, when the ladder, the ladder's got to go up and over this dark brown section.
Yeah, the ladder is not going to be going up to this height. The ladder,
Why is the ladder not going?
because he has an aerial.
One of us said a bad word.
He has an aerial that can come up over the parapet and drop down. The ladder is going up to needs to get to the bottom of that 4th floor.
I see, but in order for the ladder to get to all of the air handlers, it's got to get
He's
up
gotta
and over
get
this brown
over
section.
and back.
And beyond.
And back.
Yeah, and so using my 8th grade geometry, what's the drop that would be from the ladder? I don't know what the angle of the ladder is, but if you're taking a slope, we're coming up here, you're up and over the
He's up,
here.
he's up on the aerial, he's up in the air.
He's up in the air, and he's jumping. The firefighter's jumping more than 2 feet to get to the roof.
However close he can get.
Right, because you got some geometry, you got the ladder going up and over.
Yeah, that's why we lowered that as much as we could.
Good, understood, thank you.
As far as the sprinkler system, is the water connected so it would come on if there's a fire, or they have to connect hoses to the standpipes in the stairways?
No, there is a standpipe in the stairwell
Yeah.
that they can connect to, but there is a sprinkler system that is fully charged that.
That's not connected to those standpipes.
It's fed through those standpipes essentially. Those standpipes feed the sprinkler system. It's all part of the same system.
But there's water that gets, the fire department doesn't have to come and connect hoses
No,
to those standpipes.
no, the sprinkler system will function
All right.
without that.
Well, I think, not that I'm interrupt, but I think his question is there's going to be standpipes that are going to be dragged those out.
Chief, you can't.
Sean,
Just, on the record. I think it's just
Sean, you need to be up here where we can pick you up on the mic.
He's gonna have a standpipe. We would still carry hose up to connect to that standpipe to run on whatever floor the fire would be on.
My understanding of your question was, will the sprinkler system function to suppress a fire in the absence of a direct action by the fire department? The fire department doesn't have to do anything for the sprinkler system to operate, is what Mr. Rose said.
All right. Paul?
Well, I'd like to once again move that we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The only question I have is just to confirm that Mr. Nuff has had an opportunity to address all the issues that have been raised.
Okay, once again, Mr. Knopf, have you?
Confirmed.
All right, so we have a first and second motion. The second motion come from Aaron Hoffman, right, Mr. Hoffman? We have first, we have a second, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Any nays? We're closed. All right, so let me set up where we are a little bit right now and kind of give some comments, and then what we're gonna do is maybe, Nick, have you feed us some information as well. Let me set it up and then we'll go to
Sorry,
you.
can we take a 10-minute recess? There's an issue that's happening. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right.
10-minute recess for audio-visual issues. So, welcome back to Town Planning and Zoning Commission after our brief recess. The commission just voted to close the public hearing on applications for 804 Fountain Street. So application is not closed. We feel we have a very detailed record. I'm going to make a couple of comments and then talk about how we move into our work session on this. And then after that, we're going to work on our plan of conservation and development. But for the next few minutes, let me just make some comments, please, about how we will work on this work session. So the 804 Fountain Street application is a complex application with significant record to consider that's been presented to the commission over the past few weeks and months. We have a record from the public. We have significant public comment on it. And we also have a record from the interveners and others who have provided information. The commission has received information right up until this afternoon. Even this evening when we were showing up, we were receiving copies of letters and so forth to go into the record to allow the commission to make a decision on these applications that have been submitted. Thanks again to all the people that have submitted this data. So now what we'll be doing is we're moving into a work session to talk through 804 Fountain Street, the application itself, and to consider everything that's been provided to us. It is not possible for all of us to have suddenly just looked at all the information today and made final decisions after reading everything that's come through, even this afternoon and even this evening. What we did have our town planner do in connection with our town attorney is prepare two motions for the commission to consider. One of the motions is a motion to approve the applications as submitted and as presented with the data that we have from Attorney John Nuff and the applicant. So we have a motion to approve the 804 Fountain Street application. We also have a motion in draft form, a motion to deny the application based on our zoning regulations and the data that has come in. So we also have, at the same time, a motion to deny. So we have these two different motions that we have in front of us. And I would, at this point, ask Nick to maybe make a couple comments about how that process goes, in your experience. Most towns do when they have applications at this caliber with this level of information and so forth, how we can communicate with you. And right before I go to Nick, we will not be voting tonight because we're going to be working on these motions, but that vote needs to come this month. Is that correct, Nick?
Correct.
Okay. Please take it from here.
Thank you,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so the public hearing has closed, which means no additional information can come into the record that this commission considers as part of rendering its decision. This commission is not precluded from engaging with staff. We are not allowed as staff to bring in new information, but we can help understand and reduce into potential motions the vast evidence that has come in throughout these proceedings. Mike has prepared draft motions, which are typical and commonplace across the state in all of the towns that I work with and all the municipalities that Mike works with, particularly where there's, I mean, if it's a very straightforward, short, simple application, maybe there isn't a need for more robust motions. But where there's a complicated enough application like we have here, it's fully legal and appropriate, we feel, to, this is our job to help the commission understand what is a very robust record here. So that's where we go from here. We have an opportunity tonight to whatever extent the commission can give Mike and I additional input, additional insights. I mean, really, the way that we presented two draft motions because we really can't sense which way the commission might be leaning. There's been sentiments on both sides, so that's how we've prepared these. In our broader experience, where we have more clear signals from a commission which direction they might be leaning in, that is what the proposed draft motion might reflect more. Here we're at a little bit of a disadvantage just because of how long these proceedings have gone, how much different input we've had, even from some of the commissioners, either for or against. So that's why we have two motions here. To whatever extent the commissioners during this discussion can, just say where you're heading, what you would want to see in a motion. I mean, now's the opportunity. You're not gonna, by talking about how you're feeling and your opinions about the application and your opinions about the record, now that the public hearing's closed, you are able to have those discussions. You are able to conduct that analysis without fear of, there's gonna be a claim that I've predetermined this, or you have the full record, the hearing's closed now, that's what you're gonna base your ultimate decision on, which we can help by crafting into these motions. So with that, really, it's an opportunity to discuss. I think it might make sense for Mike to give, since he primarily drafted these, to just maybe put a bit of a framework for how they've been drafted, and then we can have some discussion.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you want to take the commission through these two draft motions? Mike? All right. You might disappear. Let me ask Nick. 1 second.
Mike?
Nick?
I'm here.
Oh.
Did you hear what Jeff requested?
I did not. I heard him acknowledge me and I responded, but I didn't hear anything after that.
So Jeff requested that you take us to the motions that you crafted.
Sure. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, now.
Okay. So I'm gonna keep my camera off only because I'm working on some northern New England bandwidth with internet and I don't trust it. You all met me last week, so you know what I look like. So I'm gonna take you through the motions and just kind of talk to you to start on the structure. Again, as Attorney Monti said, we are at a little bit of a disadvantage because we don't know what the commission is sort of feeling at this point. We don't know which way anybody is leaning. So we're trying to sort of proactively provide motions on both sides of the table pertaining to the application and provide support for that. Understanding what the commission's thoughts are will help us refine those, but again, so we started with I think the first one you have is the motion to approve. So I've referenced and updated as of today the plans that were provided. So we have updated architecturals, which are referenced there in reference plan 2. I then have a set of findings, and unless, I mean, you all have it in front of you, so I don't think you are asking me to read it verbatim, but if somebody wants me to, we're good with that? Okay, I'll take you through them, just kind of, again, the pieces. So the first, the motions overall, or the approval motion is structured into kind of a couple of different categories. This is how I do all of the motions for large projects that I deal with, as Attorney Bamonte said. So the categories that you see here, and many of these conditions are conditions that I would include on projects in any town, whether it be commercial, residential, et cetera. It's sort of the standard that I think a project of this size needs to be held to. And then there are some conditions which we've added, which are specific to the project and the conversations that have been held by the commission and by the applicant. So the first one is, the first 4 fall under conditions which must be met prior to the signing the final Mylars. So these are things the applicant has to do essentially immediately, things that we want done and memorialized as part of that final plan set. And so number 4, you'll see I have 4A, which is where I'm asking them to incorporate a copy of the conditions onto the plan. That is so that the final plans have all the conditions and we don't have to go hunting around meeting minutes to determine if the commission established additional conditions during their motion. But if there are other amendments to the plans that we need to ask the applicant to make through the commission's discussion, we would just add those bullets in there. The next set of conditions, 5 through 9, are conditions which must be met prior to the issuance of any permits. So these are the things that they need to do prior to getting a building permit to start the project. This is not inclusive of their obligations related to any other agency. So if there's a building permit requirement, if there is or building department requirement, something related to the Office of State Traffic Administration or district, DOT district in this case, any other requirement that they have, water, sewer, et cetera, we're not including all of that in here. This is related to sort of land use and the things that this commission has control over. So again, we're asking for the final plans. We're asking for an erosion and sedimentation control bond. We're asking that they provide copies of the necessary DOT approvals so that we can be sure that they have been obtained and that there hasn't been any changes or required deviations from the plans after those discussions with DOT. Again, this is very boilerplate. It's not based on skepticism that something isn't going to happen, but these are things that this is a normal project sequence that I think that a project like this should go through. The last one is number 9, relates to the conversation that was held last week and speaks to the type of ladder that is necessary. The commission can certainly decide what to do with that based upon the comments that were put into the record tonight, the fire chief. I have some thoughts on maybe some additional language we could add to that to codify sort of that working relationship and making sure that there's a suitable storage location on the property if that's what is deemed to be appropriate. Moving on to conditions 10 through 14. So these are conditions which must be met prior to the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance. So a lot of times you'll see discussion related to the issuance of a CO. The Planning and Zoning Commission and the Zoning Enforcement Officer, Town Planner, we have no control over the issuance of a CO. That's a building code function. But we do have control over the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance. And the building code says that they need to obtain a certificate of zoning compliance as part of the CO process. So there's a little bit of nuance there, but again, the idea is these conditions have to be satisfied prior to someone's occupancy of the building. And the one that I will note, which was added, is number 14. And it's that they provide us a final schematic floor plan indicating the location of the deed restricted units, demonstrating that the units are evenly distributed across the development. So again, final floor plans, construction, et cetera, we want to know that those units are everywhere and not just into a specific phase and sort of where they ended up. So that would be something that they would provide at the end. Last section are just general conditions that are specific to the project, but don't fall necessarily into any sequence. And so again, many of these would apply to many projects. They're not specific, but again, I think that are very important. Again, 15 talks to the commission's reliance on the information in the record in making the decision. And then we get into requiring limits of clearing to be field staked. This is to make sure that we don't have clearing beyond the portions of the site that require it. 17 talks about asking the applicant's engineer to certify that the drainage structures have been installed in accordance with the plan prior to basically occupancy of the building. So, we've had a lot of discussion and heard about the function of the stormwater improvements on site. And we want to make sure that that goes beyond what's been planned, and that they are installed the way that they need to, and then therefore have been installed on the site in the way that they can function as designed. 19 gives the town the ability to ask for additional E&S if they do an field inspection to determine it's necessary. 20 talks about E&S controls not being basically invasive free, not wanting to introduce invasives onto the property. And we are reserving the right to require additional landscape establishment bonds based on when they're installed, time of year, the season, a number of things. We want to make sure that the landscaping will actually grow and become established. And so it's very common based upon the construction schedule to simply say, we want to hold this to make sure that whatever you planted at the time of year, et cetera, will establish and not be dead come next summer. And then the final one is just a sort of reflection of the current regulations, which allows the town attorney and staff to review all the final documents, deeds, restrictive covenants, lease provisions, et cetera, to make sure that those final, all the language related to the opportunity units, housing opportunity units are in accordance with all the relevant legal provisions, et cetera, before they get filed on the land records. And I'll stop there in case anybody has questions or think I missed something or et cetera.
Mike, I have a quick question for you on point number 14. Can you hear me?
Sure.
So,
I can.
with respect to the location of the deed restricted units, were you saying that those wouldn't move around? For example, the applicant raised the issue that if somebody moved from one apartment to another, you wouldn't want it to be a situation where you had to kick people out of a unit. So if you show that the actual location of the deed restricted unit is in the plan, does that provide sufficient flexibility not to have to ask people to move out from one apartment to another?
So that's a good question. This was discussed at the last meeting. What I'm trying to capture in this condition is where the units are when we push go, based upon just construction, because sometimes things change. I mean, we saw it tonight. They did need to modify the configuration of a few units to get the second elevator in. But to your point, I think that that's an important consideration. I have seen other affordability plans which specifically state in the plan itself that the property owner has the right and is afforded the opportunity to move that unit. If deed restricted, if unit 8 is deed restricted and that person gets a promotion and is no longer eligible, it gives them the opportunity, instead of saying to that person, hey, we've got to find a place for you to go or you got to leave, to take the restriction off of unit 8 and place it on the another unit in the building. And then what would happen is when that annual update occurs, where they provide documentation to the town that say, for this year, here's our review and everything is in compliance, they would provide notification, hey, Unit 8 is coming off as a restricted unit, and in lieu of that, Unit 12 is now the restricted unit. So on an annual basis, they would be giving us the most up-to-date information. I've seen affordability plans specifically state that that is the intent, that they want to be able to do that, and that is how they will function. This affordability plan doesn't expressly state it, so I think if the commission wants that to be possible, and I think for the purposes of promoting longevity of tenants and getting people into the units and allowing them to stay for longer periods of time, it's important. I would say that you could sort of acknowledge that, and in the town attorney's final review of these documents before they're filed, we will make sure that that language exists in a way that's satisfactory to us, so that it addresses that issue. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, I appreciate that. I'm going to ask you to move on to the motion to deny in just a moment. But that's wrong. No, so do commissioners have any questions before we do
And
that?
Mike, on that, on the affordability plan that I think was number 14, so I want to make sure I understand, you're going to craft something, and now I'm not saying the applicant would do this, but we just want to, I want to make sure that all the affordable units don't end up, on the ground floor clustered on one side in a corner. So it would have to be some kind of, diversification of the affordable units in the building.
Correct, yes. We would make sure before they were allowed to occupy the building that they gave us a floor plan which demonstrated that the deed restricted units were evenly distributed across the building. If they showed us a plan that showed all those units in one back corner on the fourth floor, they would not comply with the approval as currently drafted.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't say it clearly. I have no doubt out of the gate that would be the case. My question is, what happens if you've got a number of people that can no longer occupy the affordable part of the building, those units, because they are no longer qualify, so then they would have to find other units, and it wouldn't be the case, I don't know how you'd craft it, but that you couldn't lump after the fact all the affordable units together because folks have earned out of the affordability part of housing.
Right, so I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, what we would expect is that if the tenant of Unit 8, which is a 2-bedroom, gets that promotion, is no longer eligible, that they then find another 2-bedroom in the development to become the restricted unit. So it may be, they could be anywhere in the building, because at this point it's going to become an availability issue, right? They're going to have to use that next available 2-bedroom, so that we don't end up in a situation where we don't have that same cross section of studios 1s and 2s. So there is a chance that when that person is no longer eligible, there's going to be a period of time until that next unit comes available. But we would not allow them to take two-bedroom units offline and start allocating all the studios as the deed restricted units.
Thank you.
Mike, Ben Cherry, how do towns deal with this? How do building management entities deal with this when you have a fully occupied building? It's relying on turnover.
Yeah, so there are some plans that I've read which basically the operator of the building or the management company that's dealing with the site, has to enter into a conversation with the occupant and basically say you don't meet the criteria and you've got to move out. And the difference between the deed restricted unit and the market rate unit may be too high for that person anyways. So if they place out of the deed restricted unit, they may not, and likely all will not want to stay because they may find that the market rate units are too expensive or they want something different, et cetera. But I think the way that it's managed is on that annual statement that the operator provides the town, you then look and see, okay, what's the status of those deed restricted units. I will tell you that I know that there are many towns that sort of set it and forget it, and basically say, oh, well, they are providing 12 units, so great. They pat themselves on the back and they never look at it again. And they don't really provide any mechanism for a conversation to deal with how these units remain occupied by eligible people, and that the number of units is what it's supposed to be 2, 5, and 10 years out. And so the idea that we see where those units are and that they engage in that annual statement of compliance to the town will sort of allow us to make sure that's happening. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I understand. You're creating a hook for an enforcement action. I'm trying to understand what the time, the acceptable timeline for producing additional affordable units would be in that hypothetical scenario, and what kind of enforcement actions, are available to a town.
Got it. So yeah, I don't know and it's a really good question. It's one that I spend a lot of time kind of thinking about, because my initial reaction when reading all of the documentation was that we should leave the affordability plan written as is, and if somebody places out of the deed restricted unit, then they have to go. They have to themselves move. The problem that you have with that is, as I said before, it doesn't promote longevity of tenants. You have people that are going to be in and out of the community at all times. And number two, if you're a tenant, the whole purpose of this whole type of project is that people that are trying to sort of move themselves forward have an opportunity to do so. And if they're going to be penalized and be forced to move out of their house for getting a small increase in their wages, that is fundamentally against the whole idea. So making the deed restrictions somewhat portable within the development, I think, allows for this to maybe work the way it's supposed to.
Okay.
So I have not seen in any of the affordability plans that I've read, any projects that I've reviewed, I've not seen any specifics as far as an expectation that the town has that if a deed restricted unit is essentially moved, that you find a way to place that down within a certain amount of time. I don't know what that would look like. Certainly willing to think about it more in discussion with the applicant and the town attorney as we look at the final language of the affordability plan. But I don't have anything off the top of my head, and I know that doesn't answer your question.
It's okay. I understand. I have a separate question. It may be for Mr. Bamonte. So let's say, because number 14 is one I zeroed in on as well. Let's just say, for the sake of me understanding this process, there's something in here that just because of the way it's worded or maybe something substantive, the applicant, and we pass one of these motions, or let's say we pass the motion to approve, but there's something that we include as a condition of that motion, which is just an impossibility. Is there any, forgive me for using legal terms that I don't fully understand, is there any severability of a motion like this, right? Can we say, we're going to throw out point number 14 because it's just impossible, but the rest of the motion and the approval remains in force?
So there's two ways that could possibly happen. One is if the applicant disagrees with the condition and files an appeal seeking to say, hey, that condition is illegal, here's why, throw it out court. Or, and what also happens a fair amount of the time, is if there's a condition that for whatever reason doesn't work, and this could be years down the road even, the applicant comes in and asks for a modification of the conditions. That request would still flow through this. I mean, this is how I've always opined, is that process is the same as what the underlying approval would have been. So here, if there's a modification being asked for a condition of approval, it would have to come back, have a public hearing, but I'm just saying, transparency-wise, it can get done.
I completely understand. I'm just laughing at the idea of more public hearings.
Yeah,
understood. Thank you.
Mike, Jim Horowitz here. I'm having a little trouble understanding the concept of these conditions that attach. I thought that the purpose of the public hearing, the back and forth, the modifications that were made by the applicant were in order for them to address our concerns in order for the applicant to express their concerns with our concerns. And this subject of the affordability units and how the affordability units were going to be handled, I thought last time we met was actually the subject of some discussion. The Attorney Nuff explained how the process was going to be handled. The process that he described is different than the process that was in the papers. Why shouldn't we just accept that there is some ambiguity on here and make our decision based upon the ambiguity of the applicant's oral presentation versus their written presentation? I don't completely understand why at this point we are allowing ourselves to move into this uncharted territory of conditions. I thought that was the whole purpose of the last 6 months. No?
So I don't think that we're, at least in my review, in what I would describe as uncharted territory. I think that the takeaway from the meeting, the takeaway that I had from the last meeting was that everybody understood and sort of agreed that there should be some portability within the development for the units. That was what the applicant represented would be the case, and it seemed like that made good sense, and I agree it makes sense, and I think it's a practical reality. I don't think you can codify the way the affordability plan sort of is managed through a motion. So that's why you're not seeing any specific language relating to that in and of itself in the motions that you have in front of you. What we're talking about, the mechanics of that, we're simply going to make sure that their final affordability plan reflects what was represented to you during the public hearing. So that is, they could, the way the affordability plan is written now doesn't preclude them from doing that. It doesn't stop them from doing it. They explained it during the public hearing. What I'm suggesting is that we specifically include that language because these units are going to be restricted long after all of us are hopefully no longer sitting at this table, right? So 40 years from now, we're going to have to make sure that it's clear how this stuff, what the expectation is. So I'm simply saying let's capture that consensus and put it into the final affordability plan. I'm not, to me, this is just sort of an issue of adding a couple of words. I don't see this as some fundamental miscalculation of something that was omitted intentionally or not. Plan is good as written. I'm simply asking to refine it for clarity.
Yeah, and so I guess where I'm disagreeing with you is I don't think that there was consensus. I think that there was discussion. There was a March 6, 25 affordability plan from the developer where they said a change in income and qualifying status would result in the person being evicted from the apartment unit complex. And so that's different from what Mr. Nupp said the other day. And what I'm saying is I just don't think that there was this consensus that you're describing. I think that there was question about what the affordability plan was going to look like, how the affordability plan was going to be executed, and if there was ambiguity or uncertainty as to what that looked like among the commissioners, our lawyer, and you, we had ample opportunity to seek that clarification. And what we're left with now is that ambiguity, and we can either accept that ambiguity or we can reject that ambiguity and use it as a reason to reject the application. But I think for us to start saying, look, there's consensus and therefore we agree on this, I think is misguided, is not correct.
All right, Jim, are you proposing that we strike 14 out of his?
No, I'm concerned about the larger question, and the larger question is, and this was the discussion that we had last week, was the whole question of the affordability plan and a commitment from the developer that 12% of the units were going to be under the affordability guidelines. That 12% is important to us for lots of reasons in order for us to get to the numbers that we need. And so the question
it's also that's the regulation we did a year ago.
Yeah. Yes.
It's in the regs.
But 12% when we're adding on 96 units doesn't bring us up very close. It only moves us very fractionally to achieving what our objectives are, which is more affordable housing in Woodbridge, which we have to do. And so this discussion of the affordable housing was critical because what happens when somebody now prices out and they're no longer qualified for affordable? So now we don't have 12, we have 11. And what happens when that happens a second time? We don't have 11, we have 10. And we talked about this at the meeting last Monday, and we went around. I'm not sure there was a clear answer on it, but all I'm saying is I don't think it's right for us to say this is a condition, you can solve it later on, when we have had 50 examples of conditions, or 25 or 10, whatever the number is without being hyperbolic, of conditions that we came up with: the elevator, the roof, the parapet, the driveway, the garbage, the this. And here, we discussed it, and there was no change that was made, and I think we should just accept that and take that as a factor that we're going to consider as to whether or not we're going to approve this application.
I take, may I please, I understand what you're saying. I appreciate the point that you're putting forward, okay, on this particular issue with the affordable units. Can we move to the motion to deny and have maybe Mike discuss that a little bit? But I want to take your point in this work session.
Fair enough.
That that's a serious matter to you.
Fair enough.
And you're using it, and so we may have to modify point 14 or take it out or do different things that would be part of the motion to approve, and that it's an issue on the denial side as well.
Fair enough.
Good.
Commissioner.
Kathy, did you have a quick question?
Yeah, I just feel that this could be easily remedied by, within the language of the affordable housing plan, to discuss which, and this is the way many developments manage, set-aside units, that, affordable units. I would propose that the language say the initial set-aside affordable units, knowing that what starts off with the opening of the building is not going to be the same set aside, during the life of the building, and just have, conditions in the affordable housing plan that in the event a person that was deemed eligible for an affordable unit is no longer deemed eligible, then they have a choice to either A, pay the market rate, or B, move out. And if they decide to stay with a market rate, paying the market rate rent and agree to that, that the next similar type unit, be it a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom studio that comes available, becomes
Immediately goes back into the pool of the affordable.
becomes the.
Understood.
And that's how these developments are managed with
Look,
set
there's
aside.
several ways that the commission can work through this, but can I just have our planner just talk about the motion to deny, and then we can go back to whatever you guys want to talk about? I just want both out on the table first. Is that all right?
Sure, I just wanted to explain
Underst-
that I don't think
yeah.
this is a deal killer. I think it's
I
very
understand.
easily
I understand where you're trying to go with it. All right, Mike, can you just talk about the next motion?
Sure, yes. So, again, the structure of this is the same as the motion to approve. That said, obviously you don't issue conditions on a motion to deny. So what we've got here are about a half a dozen findings related to the application and the requirements of your zoning regulations. You will see in both 1 and 5, there's some brackets there which say site-specific expert evidence in the record, that there is, for 1A, site-specific expert evidence in the record that there is a reasonable likelihood of a specific impact to the environment by certain proposed construction. And then for 5, again, asking that the commission cite evidence of specific conditions that would likely result from the construction and violate following sections. So kind of as we talked about at the last meeting, the decision, whatever it is got to be supported by evidence in the record, not general statements or comments that are, I'm concerned about denying the application because of concern related to noise, right? We've got to drill down farther than that. So in those specific sub-bullets, what we're asking the commission to do is think about how you would introduce in place of that specific, site-specific information from the record which you feel supports the specific requirements of that part of the denial. So we would replace those with evidence relating to the special permits or special exception standards, or the reasonable likelihood that there be environmental impacts. And obviously, we're not in your head. We don't know what you've found to be most compelling, and so we haven't injected the motion with those specific things within the record. But when it comes time for the commission to sort of figure out where things are going to head here, you're going to have to include in the motion those criteria, those specific items to support that finding.
Mike, now help me out. This is sort of an asterisk to your comments on motion to deny. Where do we fit in with interveners? What is the status of them? Does that require a different motion?
Can I answer that?
Absolutely.
So, with reference to the proposed motion to deny, the initial findings numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 are findings that the commission would have to make one way or the other due to the intervention that has occurred here. So there are two parties that have filed a petition under a specific state statute that allows them to come into the proceedings and submit evidence, become a party, that was Attorney Elliott, and submit evidence that effectively says this development is going to create an unreasonable impact on the environment, and here's why. And what the law says is there's two determinations that the commission would have to make just because this intervention came in. So the first finding is there a reasonable likelihood, and I'm happy to explain this, more, but just, this is an initial threshold finding. Is it reasonably likely that there's an unreasonable impact on these natural resources of the state? That's a bit of a discretionary call for this commission, but it's still based on the evidence that's in the record. So to find, once that determination can be made, is this proposal unreasonably impacting the environment? If the answer is no, then the commission's done with that analysis, and this commission would not be precluded from an approval. If this commission finds that there is an unreasonable impact to the environment, we go to the next step, which is represented in the next point. Is there an alternative? Okay, the law calls it a feasible and prudent alternative. So if there is an unreasonable impact, the next question is there an alternative? Is it feasible, meaning is it sound from an engineering standpoint, and is it prudent? Is it economically doable for the applicant, basically? And if the answer to that then is yes, there's an alternative. So if there is an unreasonable impact to the environment and there is an alternative, then the commission effectively has to deny the application. It's a fairly high standard, okay? It is still based on substantial evidence in your record. The interveners submitted testimony and reports from Steve Trinkus as their engineer, and they submitted reports from a soil scientist as well. That's the evidence that would support that sort of a finding. So that's findings 1 through 4 relate to that exercise, and then point number 5, it's on the general special exception standards under your regulation, public health, safety, and welfare. Again, these subpoints, like Mike said, this is where we call out in the motion itself, so it's clear as day what the specific evidence is that the commission would potentially be basing a denial on.
Were there any alternatives proposed in the record?
The alternatives that were proposed in the intervention petitions and I can't speak to all of the stuff that came in after those. Trinkus's testimony may speak to alternatives. I'm not quite there. However, the initial petitions, it's required that they call out what a potential alternative is. So just bear with me for a minute. Okay, now this is the interveners, what they claim are proposed alternatives, okay? Number one, limiting the height to 2.5 stories so that the building does not loom over the existing single-family neighborhood and mar the aesthetics of the ridge. Number two, reducing the number of units, same reason basically. Number three, preserving the land in its natural state or for agricultural use. So the alternatives that are being presented are either trim this thing down significantly or leave it the way it is as open space. At least that's the alternatives represented in the intervention petitions. And we can, continue to look at, we'll have another date that this commission can, review in more detail those intervener submissions and see what, if anything, there is something that the commissioners would like to point to or not.
The last thing that you said, basically, isn't an alternative. You're saying that that there's no alternative going ahead.
Well,
so how can that fit in with that?
It comes back to the two words that describe what this alternative has to be in order to meet that standard. It has to be feasible from an engineering standpoint. It has to be prudent. It's something that's economically viable and what the applicant, the property owner, wants to use its property for. As an owner of property in a town, property owners have rights on how to develop their properties. Those rights are effectively laid out in your regulations. So I say it does put a little bit of discretion on this commission to identify, well, what's really an unreasonable impact here? Sure, this is a big building. There's going to be a lot of work involved with it, but is it unreasonable? What does unreasonable mean? I think this commission needs to think about its regulatory scheme, and for property development, based on the evidence that you have or don't have, is that an unreasonable impact or not? I know it's hard for me to give you guidance on what reasonable or unreasonable really means.
I have a big picture question. I'm used to having a motion put forth in the affirmative, a second, a discussion, and then a vote. So are you saying that if someone puts forth a motion to approve with all these things and we all agree on the motion, and then the motion doesn't pass, then you have to have a motion to deny after that?
No,
I've never heard of that.
someone doesn't want a particular condition.
No, I'm sorry. Let's say we agree on a motion to approve, okay? And the motion and it gets seconded, we had discussion, and we go to vote, and that motion to approve does not pass. Are you saying there's some rule that says we now have to have a motion to deny?
No.
Okay.
It puts us in a legal, I think the way that they're putting words in is, they want us to, and that's what's going to be my question, is we have to straw poll ourselves because we have to direct them to create this, and then
I totally get it, but I just want to make sure because I thought you just put forth a motion in the affirmative, discuss it, and then vote on it, which we could do and not have to worry about the motion to deny. Is that right?
Right.
That is right.
That's correct.
If you're, I guess what I'm saying, Paul, is if this commission is ultimately inclined to deny, in order to have a defensible decision, we need to have these specific findings in your motion.
I have a question about that.
So that's different. So I'm sorry, Jim.
Go ahead.
That's different than what I just asked. I just want to make sure I'm clear on the procedural aspects. So, Jim makes a motion to approve, Aaron seconds it, we have discussion. we exhaust discussion and it's, 5-4 against. But you're saying, what you said, Nick, it wasn't, then it just doesn't die there.
No.
What you're saying is we legally required to go to the motion to deny. Can it die there, or does it need to have something else attached to it?
I mean, you gotta act on it
You
one
gotta
way or
make a
the other,
decision.
right? So if it dies on a motion to approve
Yeah.
based on whatever commissions are put
Yeah.
forward, someone else has to make a motion. Is a motion to approve based on something different?
Yes, but if the motion to approve doesn't pass, there's not some special rule that says you have to go to motion to deny.
No.
Okay. Because you just said, well, you have to cite these things, but you wouldn't cite those things in a motion to approve.
Correct.
But
Because
we're putting ourselves in jeopardy. We could get up and leave after voting against a motion to approve, but he's saying it's the way to try to prevent whatever the next step is to do, instead of arguing on the motion to approve, we argue and then direct them. The discussion is now. We straw poll ourselves and we decide which way is gonna go, and then and figure out what words go in either the motion to approve or deny, and then knowing how we're gonna vote on it.
So
totally
if there's
get it.
just a motion to approve
Yep.
based on these conditions, and it's denied,
Yeah.
there still has to be a next step. I think I'm starting to understand. Are you asking then, is that failure of that motion to approve
The end.
the end?
Right.
My response is no, it's
So
not.
what is the, thank you.
Because it's been the end for other things.
Because what I was gonna say to Aaron, so here are some things that I'm struggling with. One, each meeting has different people around
Yes.
the table potentially, and different people voting. So you could straw poll
Yeah.
tonight and have the opposite at a subsequent meeting. We don't know who's coming and who's not, and we don't know who's gonna be seated to vote and who's not. So I guess I'm trying to figure, are we trying to get every I dotted and T crossed procedurally now, and then plug and play depending on what players around the table come?
Pretty much, because if the end result is going to be a denial, then we need to structure that denial so that when the appeal comes, we can say, you guys hit all the points that legally you're required to in order to effectuate a denial.
I totally understand what you're saying. I heard you. I get it. It's processed. But things could change from, meeting to meeting. And I think Jeff mentioned it. So you want us to straw poll tonight, but I heard that we weren't voting because we got that batch of material at 4:15. So it might be premature to straw poll because we haven't all read the stuff that came in at 4:15.
I feel that way too. I mean, Aaron, I get what you're saying, and it's helpful. It's very helpful to give very strong guidance to the attorney.
Yeah,
I
right
totally now,
get it.
say no, I don't want to do this, or yes,
Yeah.
I do. But there is such a vast amount of material. If you're really trying to keep an open mind to evaluate it, Paul, I got stuff today at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
No,
Okay.
you're right.
All right, and I haven't looked at it. Now, to Aaron's point, it provides significant amount of assistance to the attorneys
I get it.
to know which way we're going.
So if there's some reticence or inability to, really do that sort of straw poll exercise here, again, I mean, read through everything and then email me what you think.
So that's
That's
the
what I-
procedure I wanted to talk to you
that's
about,
what I
Nick.
think we should
Okay, wherein what we can do as commissioners is read all the data, try to make up your own mind what direction you're going in, either to deny or to approve, and get that material to our town attorney, and then they can craft a motion that would reflect our thinking.
And could I just,
Yeah.
I mean, just because Paul, you said, I mean, what's the point if we're gonna be rotating people around? I mean, this has gone on long enough, and at least for the past however many meetings I've been at, it's been the same makeup here. So, I mean, I think at this point,
He's new,
well,
and then we're coming on the holidays, so I don't know, I have no idea who's here when.
I mean, I think we should have the same makeup. I think we should strive to maintain, for voting purposes, the same makeup of the body that's.
We have another woman who sits here, and she's not here tonight, or at the last meeting, who could be.
Or the meeting before.
Right, so,
Three in a
yeah,
row.
I'm not trying to make your life difficult, right?
Not
I'm just
difficult.
trying
You
to lay
bring
out.
up a really good point.
I just don't want to come to the next meeting
Right,
and then
right.
go, oh, well,
Yeah.
Sarah's here, but, Jim and Aaron aren't. What do you want to do?
I think the folks who are here right now have demonstrated that you're committed to this application. Sure, even though Jim's new, I mean, he's demonstrated that he's reviewed a lot and has asked a lot of salient questions here. Same thing, Kathy, Dr. Wisnia, Dr. Chair, I mean, everyone has participated in this. My advice is to stick with this group to vote at the next meeting.
I agree with that. Is there a way to do that? Do you need a motion to do that? Do you seat the alternates now in this voting panel, or do you just remain silent? Is there a procedure for that?
I don't know that the commission needs to take formal action, but I mean, that's certainly what your town attorney is going to be advising for the sake of consistency and thoroughness of understanding the record here for a very important decision. I think this is the group.
Can I, before we get too far away from Paul's question, if we vote on the motion to approve exactly as it's drafted, motion, second, we vote, it's denied, the application is denied, correct? At that point, the application is denied. You may not, I'm going to ask you my second question about the legal evidence that you need, but at that point, the application is denied, isn't that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
It has not been approved.
Now on the second point, I, having been a trial lawyer for almost 40 years, I'm not sure that I agree with you that the right thing to do is to come up with items 1, 2, 3, and 4 as the rationale for our motion to deny. Because I think as soon as we say items 1, the court that's going to hear this, if there's an appeal on it, the court that's going to hear it is not confined to our motion. What they are confined to is our record. And our record is all of the, as I understand it, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but is all of the documents, everything that's been submitted right up until the moment that the public hearing was closed. That is the record. And what I fear is that if we articulate what's the rationale for our not having passed the motion, that we say it's going to be items 1, 2, 3, and 4. A court will take a look at that, and they will say, as opposed to looking at the entire constellation of the record to support our ruling, they will say that our ruling is actually not based upon the entire record, but it is based only on items 1, 2, 3, and 4. And even if the record reflects that there are points 5, 6, and 7 that support our decision, the court could, not necessarily, but could say, I'm not going to consider 5, 6, and 7 because that wasn't articulated in the motion to deny. Therefore, the stronger argument, it seems to me, as a trial lawyer wanting to have all of the evidence in front of me, would be to say, if we were going to deny it, motion to approve, denied. Denial is based upon the entire record that's before us. End of story.
Did you do land use trials for 40 years?
No, I did medical malpractice trials for 40 years. So, yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
I mean, look, that's agree to disagree.
Fair enough.
I'm happy to go through the case law in the land use context, particularly where there's an intervener, and particularly where this commission might be inclined to cite to its more general special exception reasons for denial, if a denial is contemplated. A flat saying, no, we deny you, end of story, I do not think that is the most defensible position.
Fair
this
enough.
commission
I get
can
that.
have.
What happens to, we say it's points 1, 2, 3, and 4?
The court
No,
looks
no,
at those
let me finish
points
my question.
and limits to
Yeah.
what you say.
Okay, so
That's why this is important.
Okay, and if we say we deny it, doesn't the court, there's case law that says the court won't look at the entire record?
The court will look at the entire record, not in the context of an intervention, and not, I'm telling you, the court is not just going to find on its own some general, a reason, a specific reason in the record to support a generalized a denial based on your generalized conditions for public safety and welfare. You've
Okay.
got to be specific on it.
The court is not going to act in the role of commissioners of the town of Woodbridge Planning and Zoning Commission.
It's not. I mean,
Okay.
courts give deference to the commissions.
Thank you.
They don't do the job of the commissions. Yes, Jim, you're absolutely right. There's case law out there that if there aren't specific reasons given for a denial, then the court is going to search the record and basically find it. What I'm saying is, in this particular context, those cases where the court does that, the intervention is another layer that adds additional findings that either preclude an approval altogether, completely separate from the zoning regulations. If you meet this intervention standard, there's an unreasonable impact and there's a feasible and prudent alternative, based on the separate statute, nothing to do with your regs, 22A19, you must deny it because it's conduct that's unreasonably impacting the natural environment. But, so, that's the specificity on that piece. And then the case law is clear in that it's so limited, where decisions uphold, court decisions uphold a denial from zoning commissions based solely on the generalized public health and welfare standards under their special exceptions. There needs to be, in that context, to point to those generalized that general public health, safety, and welfare. There does, I mean, Attorney Nuff was correct when he said there needs to be specific, substantial evidence in the record demonstrating why that generalized public safety concern is going to happen, or at least whatever expert or, you formed this belief based on what you heard that there is a real likelihood that this is going to happen for this reason, and it's going to result in this real impact to public health, safety, and welfare.
Got it. And I understood the second part. And forgive me for just kind of having
Not at all.
lawyer talk here. On the intervention piece, unless we specifically cite it, on appeal, the court won't listen to won't consider the intervention submissions and evidence?
Well, it depends on who's bringing the appeal, I guess.
We deny the application.
Right, so you deny the application, the applicant will appeal, the applicant will say the interveners never met their burden of showing this unreasonable impact and this alternative, and here's why. And the interveners, I mean, we will be a defendant, the interveners would come in as a co-defendant, and the interveners would file something that says, well, no, we think we did meet the standard. So the court will necessarily go through that exercise.
Okay, thank you.
So on that, if it's flipped, if it gets approved and the interveners appeal, is there anything that we have to do in our motions, or just the fact that you've laid out all those conditions that's sufficient?
Yeah, if the commission is inclined to approve with all these, I mean, there's a reason you see that the motion to deny is 1 page and the motion to approve is 3. It's because all of these conditions are safeguarding all of these additional pieces that we've talked about. And I mean, you heard Mike say, a lot of these are common that he would suggest, but they are very applicable for all the reasons that we talked about here. So the direct answer is yes, this would satisfy what this commission would need to do for intervention.
And my last question on this,
Yeah.
I just want to understand.
As many as you
If
want.
there was an intervener, then the threshold for denial is a different threshold than there was an intervener, is that correct?
Sort of. So there's technically, because there's an intervener, you have 2 thresholds for denial. The one is that intervener one that we just talked about for a
Right.
while. The other one is separate under your own regulations, those broader special exception standards if it's going to affect the public health, safety, and welfare for XYZ reasons. So there's 2 ways that this commission could potentially deny, I suppose. You could have both, you could have just the intervention, or you can have just the regulatory piece.
I understand. Thank you.
Well,
3 quick comments. Number 1, from my rapt attention at my 8-hour Bar Association training that I attended a few months ago. I believe I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not required to follow Robert's Rules of Order in these proceedings, and in fact, I think we don't most of the time. I think that's true. So number two, if the motion to advance the application fails, I don't think that necessarily means that it's dead, and we would still have an opportunity to craft a motion to deny. That's my point of view. I think that's also true. Number three, another way to, or I'm sorry, I guess number two, another way to approach this, if you're really concerned about Robert's rules and about this, the fate of the amendment and of the whole project on whether or not a motion to approve passes, just make a motion to approve, and then somebody else can propose an amendment to that motion, and then we have a discussion and a vote on the amendment. And if the amendment dies, then we're back to the motion to approve, and somebody else can make a separate amendment. It's procedural, but it's important because there were two answers just given to the question. The question was, if we make this motion with all of these 3 pages of conditions and the vote is against it, is the project dead, and are we then ending up in the Court of Appeals? I don't think the answer is yes, but even if we thought the answer were yes, there's a very simple way to avoid that. Somebody makes a motion to approve the application. Somebody else makes a motion to amend that motion to approve with all of these conditions, and this becomes the text of the amendment. Then we debate the amendment, and if we adopt the amendment, then that becomes the new motion to approve. If we reject the amendment, the motion to approve is still alive. It's still there. It hasn't been thrown out. We just simply are back to, well, somebody else better make a different amendment with a different set of conditions that we can all agree on. So procedurally, there's actually a very simple way around that, and I don't want to spend any more time discussing this, respectfully to everybody here. My third point was it's after 9 o'clock and we have a POCD to discuss.
Thank you for that. Chairman appreciates that comment. So,
In the third person, mind you.
so, all right, so where does that, I guess what I'll say with that is, did you want a response from the attorney? I'm sorry I cut you off a little bit. but
Is
I
anything
did.
that I said incorrect in your view, sir?
No, I mean, if there's nothing would preclude the commission from, if a motion to approve with conditions failed, from entertaining another different motion. The alternative that you suggested, Dr. Cherry, about the amendment, I mean, yeah, technically that could work.
Thanks.
I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if before it sounds like we're going to move on, if you want to just give Mike and Mr. D'Amato an opportunity if he has any other comments.
I think that makes sense. Mike, hearing all of this, did you want to, we're going to start to wrap things up on the work session for Fountain Street. Did you want to make any comments?
At this point, I don't think so. There's certainly some thoughts that I have and some things that I might want to say, but it sounds to me like there's going to need to be some refinement to the things that were put forward to you for consideration in the motions, and maybe, some additional comments that will come from the commissioners to the town attorney, so we can sharpen our pencils with that going forward, since there will be no decision tonight. And I'll sort of bear in mind some of the comments and things that I've heard, at least to this point, that I have some thoughts on how we can address some of the concerns to further articulate within a motion how to kind of get to where I think everybody's trying to go. So rather than debating all of that on the fly now, I'll just say we can give you a Rev 2 for that subsequent meeting, and maybe save everybody a little bit of time tonight.
Mike, thank you so much. So this is what I want to do. So
Wait, and Jeff, before you go on, how are you going to address Jim's? We tabled that number 4 or 14. Sorry. Where are we leaving that? How are we addressing it?
So you want me to give you my
Sure.
thoughts on that?
Sure. Sounds good.
So I think that the way that I see condition 14 is it's sort of the ball that got the conversation rolling, but I don't think condition 14 actually is the condition that sort of deals with the issue that the conversation surrounded, which was whether or not a unit needs to remain the deed restricted unit forever, or whether or not they can deed restrict another unit in lieu of that, and how long that time should be. So I think condition 14 should remain, because that's that initial snapshot that allows us to determine the project complies and which units get it to compliance at CO. I think I've got some very specific language that I think we could include as another condition that says, basically, the commission orders the applicant to operate the affordability plan in a certain fashion, right? So we could establish a process for how that happens. And this does not need to become sort of the conversation of whether or not the application itself should be a yes or a no. The commission should decide, do we want the units to be portable? Do we want the applicant to have the ability to move the deed restricted unit to another part of the building? And if so, how much time should they have to fill it? The commission decides whether that answer is yes or no, and we incorporate that into the plan. So I have some proposed language I think we could include for the next meeting. And if the commission decides they don't like it, then we would fall back to what was originally stated. But I don't believe there's anything in that should be the basis for a decision.
Okay, Paul?
Sure.
All right, so here's the hard part. So what we have to do is set one more meeting date this month. Chris Sullivan, we need your assistance here.
May I ask a legal question before we get to the
Of course.
scheduling? Am I correct that if I were to send you a question and you were to reply to me about something pertaining to this application, am I correct? There's no attorney-client privilege there. This is a public matter, and our communications over email about this matter in particular would be part of the public record, is that correct?
So I am your attorney, so I am always available to the chairman, to the commissioners, to answer legal questions. And I mean, that is an attorney-client
Okay.
privilege relationship. I think what we can do here, so email me, and we'll make sure everyone has my emails, email me directly any comments or thoughts that you're thinking about for purposes of these motions. Do not copy any of your other commission members, just send it to me directly. And I think Mike and I, when we were initially thinking through how to make this work in the short time period we have, given the attention and transparency being at the forefront, I don't see any reason why we can't, share those emails that you send to me as part of the public record here. It's not technically part of the legal record that the commission's basing its decision on. It would be more of like a transparency piece for how we came to the decision. Everyone's involved in making the sausage here.
I'm asking because I don't want anybody here to email you something that they wouldn't want to be made public, thinking that they are operating under some privilege that it sounds like doesn't apply to.
It does exist. So I don't want to discourage the commission members from reaching out to me directly by email, by phone. If you have a legal question, I'm going to answer it. I'm not going to give you any new information related to a pending application, but I'll give you the facts, I'll give you the law. So I am available, and that would be a privileged confidential conversation. I think what we're saying here, for purposes of developing these motions, if I receive an email from an individual commission member, down the road, once we act on these things, we're going to post those just for the sake of posting them.
You're going to make a post hoc determination about what's privileged and should be shared and what or should not be shared and what is okay to share. If I send you a long email with a bunch of parts and I admit, I don't know, I'm just saying, you're going to make a determination about what will eventually be made public.
No, that's not what I'm.
Okay.
I mean, look, we're going really above and beyond. You guys have me as a resource. There is a confidential attorney-client relationship there. It's up to the commission. I mean, this is part of developing these. If this commission wants to, put everything out there, inclusive of an email to me with comments about, hey, this is how I feel and this is what I think should be in the motion. Effectively what we were trying to get to today. If you want that to be put on the website, we can do that. If you don't, I think it still falls under the privilege.
Okay.
So, I'm happy to entertain however each of you want to handle that.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay, all right. So Chris, date? All right, I know this is gonna be really hard.
I was just looking, and that are not days that you are supposed to be working.
No, I think.
Hanukkah's not
No, you
it's
can-
not a major holiday,
You can work, we can.
so.
Okay, so that being said, let me get back to my calendar. I have a wetlands meeting on the 17th here, it's your town, I gotta be there with them. Nick, I don't know, when are you not available?
I'm not available on the 16th and the 18th. Although, no, you know what? I'll make the 16th work, and you know, if I got a remote in on the 18th, I can do that.
How's the 16th work for people?
We do the 18th.
You need the 18th, Paul? Nick, you can't be here on the 18th?
No, I'll make it work. I mean, I've got a doctor's appointment for one of my kids, so I just don't know if I'm gonna make it down here in time, but if I got a, remote in, I'll do that.
On the 18th?
Correct.
Paul, the 18th works for you? Kathy? Ben? I know, we're all making it happen. Mr. Hoffman?
Yes, I can do the 18th.
It's a date, okay.
Wow.
December 18, all right?
6:30?
Yes. Is that good, Nick?
Yeah.
6:30?
Yep.
And then I'll just find out where I can have you meet. Because I have no clue what this.
Please don't put it in the gym. I will call in sick. Anywhere else.
Okay, we'll see what I can do.
All right, 6:30 on December 18th. Commissioners should review all of the material and the subject matter that they've been receiving on this application, make some thoughts about determinations. Email it please into our town attorney, contact him with questions and comments, and we will have a vote on that evening, December 18th at 6:30.
Do we need a motion to continue our work session? No. Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there a time?
Thank you to the applicants. December 18th, all right,
Time frame to
6:30.
get comments to you, is there a time frame for that?
Okay, I'm gonna email Andrew so that he
Have
can
him,
still come.
yep, we are gonna break for about 10 minutes. Andrew Skolnick is gonna come here. We're gonna take about 40 minutes to work on the POCD. I think it will get completed during that time. Just watch, we'll see what happens, all right?
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask?
Back after our second brief session of a break at the Monday night town planning and zoning. Monday, right? Okay. So we're working on the plan of conservation and development. I have a few comments, and then we have a brief presentation from SLR, and then we'll have a little bit of a work session regarding that. And hopefully we'll move forward from there. So the plan of conservation and development is a state-required town report that's prepared and issued by the Town Planning and Zoning Commission on a 10-year basis, but it's certainly open to change during those times where towns take some effort to work on that every 10 years. The commission appreciates the comments, questions, opinions, information, and so forth presented by town residents, both in written form and in oral meetings, and commissions and committees that have come before the town to discuss these various matters with us. Thank you to Chris Sullivan, our town land use analyst, who's been faithfully assisting us with our efforts to complete this project now for the past several months. The public hearing, which we recently had, was previously closed and is completed, so the public hearing is finalized. A revised plan of conservation and development is now in front and has been sent to the commissioners for their consideration. This was sent last week for us to review it and to take a look at it. This evening we have joining us, we have SLR with us this evening. We'll make a brief presentation on things that they put in the POCD that you've already been given. They'll make some highlights over what they've included and changes they've made. And then after that, we'll have some discussion about the POCD by the commissioners here. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the folks from SLR. Please give your name, who you're from, obviously SLR, and then please proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nina Peak. I'm a senior principal planner at SLR. I'm joined here by my colleague Taylor Daigle, who is the primary author of this document with the remainder of the team. Since we were here, I think about a month ago, we left that meeting with the directive from the commission to compile all the comments received to date, which we did. We've provided an annotated document that responds to all the comments that have been offered to date to the commission for your review, and we have had one phone call with the chairman and with Chris Sullivan to review some of the more substantive questions that came up and have a discussion about how to deal with those, how to edit or otherwise address those comments in the POCD. That is the substance of that discussion, and the resolution of the editorial and organizational comments that were offered on the document were incorporated into the draft that you have before you tonight. Taylor's just going to go through the process, what we did, how we reviewed the comments, and then we'll turn it back over to you for any questions about the document.
Thanks. Thank you, Mrs.
Okay, so really quickly, we'll just go through the process that we did to review all these public comments. I'll go over the non-substantive or editorial comments that we addressed, and then the substantive changes. So we received approximately 60 pages of public comments that were provided during the public hearing and throughout the 65-day review period. We took all of those comments, reviewed them, answered them, and determined how we would address them. We reviewed the comments and incorporated anything that was editorial or an organizational comment. And then substantive comments were reviewed with Chris and Chairman Jeff here in a meeting to kind of just make sure we were on the same page of how we'd like to address these things. For our process and the ease of you all being able to review what has changed, everything was tracked in a Word document. Each chapter was delivered to you this past week so that you could see exactly what has and has not changed. And now, as Nina just said, the updated POCD that was delivered to you last week reflects all of these changes at this time. So a general summary of some of the bigger items that we addressed. We did revise and reorganize historic, cultural, open spaces, and natural resource sections of the Chapter 2. We did elevate the community survey results and components that make Woodbridge unique in Chapter 1. So there is now a survey takeaways page that summarizes the content that is in the appendix, just to bring that forward to the POCD. We clarified sewer and water infrastructure and recommendations based on public comments, and then we've also clarified the descriptions of public engagement and meeting formats throughout the POCD process. We heavily reorganized Chapter 2 to reflect the order of conservation and development, and then we did incorporate the Board of Selectmen's strategic plan into your implementation plan of this POCD. We also refined the implementation plan with a few clarification points and some minor edits as well. Non-substantive editorial revisions were in Chapters 1, 2, and 6. We kind of just discussed this, but some of the bigger highlights is, you know, a little bit more personalization, talking about Woodbridge, highlighting the community survey results and the community preferences within that chapter, clarifying the process, you know, discussing a little bit more about how the goals, strategies, and actions should be considered with one another, in conflict with one another, and the role of the TPZ in that review. Chapter 2, Woodbridge Today, we have reorganized so that conservation topics come first, followed by development topics, largely to reflect public comment about not highlighting certain topics first, but also to follow the order of the plan of conservation and development. We did supplement existing sections from open space, parks and rec, natural resource, and historic and cultural resources, the narratives of those sections. We did some reframing to the sustainability section, as well as the housing text. We clarified sewer and water expansion, and we added a new watersheds map. Chapter 6 is about the plan consistency, so that was just about, we just made some clarification points about the coordination between the POCD and how it's consistent with the state and regional plans. The more substantive edits come in chapters 3, 4, 5, and 7. These are your vision, your themes, your future land use plan, and your implementation plan. We clarified how the vision statement is developed and addressed that, you know, the theme areas have equal weight, not one is supposed to outweigh another within this chapter. We also made some minor edits as to the action items. 3 new actions were added per the public comments. There is a few minor edits made to the actions about the Woodbridge Country Club property to just reflect that the plan has been moved through that process. And 2 actions were removed related to sewer and water infrastructure expansion. The future land use plan was updated to clarify the intention of the low-density residential land use, emphasizing that we're trying to maintain current development patterns and the importance of the natural resources and open spaces in those areas. We also renamed the 2 open space categories to clarify which are protected and not protected. Chapter 7 was previously in an appendix in your implementation plan. We've now incorporated it as a complete chapter of the plan so that it is not lost at all. Chapter 7 reflects all of the goals, strategies, and actions that are shown in Chapter 4. So those edits mirror one another. We also added a column to the implementation plan acknowledging which action items from your POCD are aligned with the Board of Selectmen's strategic plan that came out in 2024. We've also added some text about suggesting some semi-regular progress check-ins on the items within the POCD. And the actions are edited as mirroring in Chapter 4. Any questions?
Any commissioners have questions of any of our members from SLR?
Just, I want to ask, what were the minor edits to the Woodbridge Country Club?
Sure.
Minor edits.
I think the language that was reflected throughout several chapters anticipated a delivery and sort of said, you know, when a plan comes in for this, you should do that, and so the language was just edited to say a plan has come in and the town should continue to monitor that. It was just sort of essentially a tense, you know, change of tense.
So commission members have had some opportunity to review the document. I did want to have Kathy Hunter just speak very briefly. I'm sorry to do that to you, but there's been some state legislation that just now got passed. And so since it just got signed into law by the governor, do you want to make a couple of comments about that, Kathy?
Yeah, sure. There was some track changes that went around just today. I'm not sure. Chris, did SLR?
I made copies of them. I don't know if you.
Right, did SLR get those?
I don't remember.
Not sure.
I lost track of who I sent what to. I don't know if I sent.
So what happened is that the state legislator and the governor together signed this new legislation. Kathy, being aware of it, made some suggested changes to the POCD. But what I'm gonna say is this, with respect to those changes, we have to, as a town and as a commission, follow any state statutes and state law anyway, because they always take precedent over whatever we do. So whatever regulation we have in our regs or whatever plan that we have, the state always comes ahead of us. And any legislation they have that would make anything that we do obsolete, or we'd have to change it and mirror the state statute anyway. Kathy made a number of very helpful suggested changes and so forth, but what I suggest we do is we move ahead with the plan of conservation and development and improve what we have now, and then right away go into a committee early next year to revise the POCD to reflect the legislation. I have not read it yet. Kathy has provided already some suggested changes, so we're moving along pretty quickly that way. I have discussed with our town attorney at some point of coming back and discussing with us what those changes are. The town should realize those changes coming from the state and those new statutes are substantial and significant, and we're gonna have to, as a town, adapt to them and to learn about them and to make changes to our POCD and regs and so forth based on those statutory changes that have just happened. That being said, my recommendation is we should discuss the POCD as it is now without any updates to these changes. And then my view would be to try to act on that this evening. So, Kathy, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about what's in that statute and some of the language maybe you wrote here, I think it would be helpful. And then I want to hear from the commission members what they think about what they've received, and we'll go from there.
Right, I mean, because of the House Bill 8002, it did, we talk about the affordable housing plan, and the House Bill 8002 replaces that. And so this POCD is effectively like already out of date because it's talking about doing updates to affordable housing plan that no longer exists because it just got replaced by House Bill 8002 that expects the towns to do a housing growth plan. So, I don't think the suggested changes is just kind of explaining that, and I don't know if you want me to go through where I did the changes, but in the section, let's see.
Well, what I just passed out is the section, so your first one was in section 2.
Oh, did you pass it out to me?
And so.
I don't think there were enough copies.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, if you could, yeah.
Actually, I
Yeah.
have two.
Right, okay, so the first part was in the section 2. I just, I discussed that the housing growth, HB 8002, an act concerning housing growth was enacted in November 2025, requiring towns to adopt a housing growth plan either as part of a regional effort through the Council of Governments or a local effort through the town. The housing growth plan is mandated to be submitted to the Connecticut Office of Policy and Management before June 1st, 2029. This plan is required to be authorized by the town's Plan and Zoning Commission and the First Selectman and will be incorporated into the POCD at that time, just to provide some context that this is in fact happening and that so folks know that there will be amendments at the time that it's incorporated. But there are also, if you go through it, there's also zoning amendments that are going to be required by the state. Let's see, I'm just going through this. Or the next one has to do with the sewer and water infrastructure because there was some, there was discussion on that. And just to highlight that in accordance with House Bill 8002, a statewide wastewater capacity study is required to be completed by OPM by July 1st, 2026. and the study must evaluate publicly and privately owned wastewater infrastructure, capacity flows, physical conditions, regulatory compliance, and vulnerability to natural hazards. The study must recommend efficient investments in wastewater infrastructure to support housing and economic development while protection of public and environmental health. So it's just, just kind of highlighting some areas that will be coming up.
So Kathy, are you okay with the approach that I'm trying to do, that we approve this evening the POCD in its current form, and then we begin working on these other things right after we file this to the state?
I think the housing growth plan should be reflected, and even if it's just in the first part, to discuss that, the fact that affordable housing plan, we're talking about affordable housing plan, and that we're going to be updating it. The fact that it's now obsolete, I think we need to at least put a statement that the housing growth plan supersedes that, and perhaps, you could cover a lot of that, and you're going to have to do a chairman introductory letter. Maybe you discuss that.
Yeah, I saw that in your email. I appreciated that. Yes, I can put in a paragraph stating that this is,
Right.
we're going to make an effective date, but right before we issued the POCD, we are aware of this new legislation and that we will update the POCD accordingly.
Yeah, and then maybe there you could perhaps list out some of the preliminary changes, because there's going to be a lot of changes. The final plan is not due until June 2029, so this is going to be an important, planning document that actually falls now under TPZ. It has to be authorized by TPZ and the first selectman.
Yeah, Kathy, if you want to send me some language to include in the chair letter specific to that, I'd be happy to collaborate with you on that.
Sure.
So what I could, I'll do the letter, okay, and then what I can do is put some of that language in there that you're suggesting. Since this bill just passed, the governor signed it Thursday, is that correct? Something?
Well, he signed it a couple weeks ago, but
Okay.
they had their ceremony, I think,
Okay.
just recently
Okay. All right.
for signing it.
All right. Anybody else take a look at any comments, Jim? I think you
Yeah,
had
I did have,
something.
so I just have a question about your conversation with
Please,
Kathy.
yeah.
So is the thought that we would reference in the POCD, House Bill 8002, and that we're going to, not just the cover letter, but actually say in the document itself, that this bill has been passed and Woodbridge is working towards
Yes.
blah, 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 blah.
Look, I'd be happy, we could stop the POCD and re-update the whole thing and include all of that. But it's been months and months, and we're late with the state filing this, and I want to get it done with the team that we have here, with the people that have been working on it. I'm not interested in rushing anything.
Got it.
But
But some reference to it
Absolutely.
in the body
Yes,
of the...
Nina, can you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because we want to do it the right way. I just don't want to file the POCD 2 or 3
No, I
or
understand
5
that.
months.
And so I did have, and I'm late to the process, and I apologize.
No, that's okay.
One of the things that struck me is that with the affordable housing directives, our population is going to grow. And so it just struck me that with regard to town size and school enrollment, for us to make the assumption that everything is going to stay relatively constant, those two things don't seem to line up. And whether this is the right time or that after we pass this, we address that. But it does strike me that those are incongruous. That, anyway, I just be repeating myself. And then just some of the other things that I thought needed some amplification. And again, is this now or is this when we take it up in later on? One of the things that is referenced at the very beginning is how that Woodbridge is unique and special. It's blend of rural and suburban, and I thought that was just a lovely description of the town. And then you get to the question of things like bicycle lanes, and there's no discussion of bicycle lanes. And even if there's some statement of aspiration as to what we intend to do with bicycle lanes would be worthwhile. I did take a look at the POCDs for other towns on the subject of traffic safety. And I think the word traffic may appear in there once at 1.51 at 75, page 75H or something, or maybe item 75H. But I did take a look at the POCDs of other communities and what they have for traffic. And things like these 6 items just strike me as like no-brainers to just include. Improve safety for vulnerable, including pedestrians, children, and seniors. Reduce speeding and cut through traffic. Utilize education, enforcement engineering to calm traffic. Prioritize resident-driven requests. Adopt a complete street mindset with speed humps, raised crosswalks, chicanes, whatever that is, and radar signs. And it seems to me that I've heard stories about on Ford Road, cars going 100 miles an hour, and on Beecher Road, people going 70 miles an hour. I live on Oak Hill Lane, and cars come through there at 45 miles per hour. And it strikes me that as time goes on, Fountain Street, cars go faster than 60 miles an hour down there. For us to put something that's more robust as our traffic control is a way to assure that our rural/suburban lifestyle is maintained. And then the last observation I had was with regard to Beecher Road School. And I think that the way the language is currently written, it says evaluation and potential expansion. And it's just struck me that that is a little narrow, and that we ought to change that to potential expansion, renovation, and replacement, just to give ourselves some greater, latitude as we consider that issue.
Would it be possible for you to type that as a note?
Sure.
And send it to Nina Peak. Nina Peak, those things don't seem especially difficult to add briefly to the existing POCD.
Yeah, we're fine.
So you'd be adding.
Yeah, if you can, after we're done, if you could just give me your email, I'll be happy to do
So that doesn't seem to be that difficult. Jim doesn't know it, but he's going to be heading up the committee next year to do all this extra work. So what will happen? But you can add the language he's looking for right now, right?
Yeah, and we're happy to make the.
And then also with that state legislation that Kathy was bringing up, she's going to help me with the cover letter, and then you can add some language in the actual body.
Yes, absolutely.
I understand did you review the document? Did you have some thoughts you wanted to share with us?
I did review the document that was sent to us last week. I thought it was polished and legally compliant, and it incorporated the public comments and suggestions that we had gotten. And in that regard, I would make a motion to accept the changes as proposed, including those that have been discussed tonight as appropriate, and to adopt this new draft as the final version.
With the inclusion of the acknowledgements to be completed by the chair and Ms. Sullivan.
Yes.
And also the chair's cover letter, which is being written by myself. Kathy's going to help add some language to that. And I think we have a motion. What's the date? One more thing, Ben. What's the date, please, of when it will be effective? January 1st, maybe?
I think that's reasonable.
Dr. Cherry, please.
No disrespect.
You have a motion before you need a second. Someone's got to second this motion first.
All right. Do we have a second?
Oh, okay.
All right. We have a first and second. Paul, thank you so much.
He's not seated, and I'm not seated anymore.
The alternates are not seated in the same.
Okay.
I'll say.
Thank you. All right. So let's discuss, but please.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Maybe I just wasn't following, or maybe I'm just getting tired. It's not.
That's okay.
It's not clear to me what was actually included in that motion. You said all of the changes that we discussed here tonight. I think that we've agreed not to include any of the changes that Commissioner Hunter, very thoughtfully put forward for the purpose of not being too explicit with our interpretation of this new legislation and the POCD as it stands, and because they're sort of substantive. Is that correct?
We're going to say in the body of the POCD that this legislation just passed, and so the POCD will have to be updated, and then in the chair's letter, it'll reference the same thing.
Okay, all right, but there's, okay.
But to your point, we're not gonna include all of that new suggested language now until such time as we review it next year. We'll set up a committee to do that.
Okay.
Can I offer a
Is that good?
That's great, and then
Can I
also,
offer a suggestion?
Please.
If I think I know where you're going, and so we are going to be meeting here next Thursday anyway. Why can't we just have these changes that are made? The ones that-
I won't be here next Thursday, though.
There you go.
Jim, I prefer not to
Oh, no,
do
okay.
that.
All right,
That
so
would
we're going to be here anyway. But,
Yeah,
but you're not.
understood.
I'm not, because of my recusal from that matter. That's,
so,
I'm not allowed.
so that we understand how to act on this motion, I'm sorry to put you in this position. Can you teach back to me what changes you're planning to make?
Yeah, that's fine.
We are planning to include language referencing the new legislation from the state, and indicating that the POCD, that the TPZ will convene a committee and the POCD will need to be updated in 2026 after discussion by a subcommittee. We will incorporate the changes that will be forwarded to us by Commissioner Horowitz. We will have the letter from the chair, and also the cover letter and the acknowledgement page from the chair.
Yes.
So, to me, some of the suggestions that you raised, Commissioner Horowitz, are flirting with being substantive. How do you feel about that characterization?
I'm not sure what the distinction is and what landmine I'm stepping on by saying that they're substantive. But having said that, I think that they're substantive.
Yeah, because, I mean, right, you could send 100 pages of suggested changes, and we're not going to vote on a motion to approve a POCD not knowing what you're going to send. It just doesn't make sense.
So let me just if this helps, the only thing that I will submit will be with regard to not the population. I think we can address that later on, but with regard to the traffic comment, and I have the language here. It is to improve safety for the vulnerable users, including pedestrians, children, and seniors, reduce speeding and cut-through traffic, utilize education, enforcement engineering to calm traffic, prioritize residents' driving requests, adopt the complete street mindset with speed humps, raise crosswalks, chicanes, once we learn what that means.
Chicanes it's a racing term.
Oh, okay, chicanes and radar signs.
Yeah.
That's it. That would be,
great.
That's the extent.
I wasn't sure you were pulling that from. That sounds great to me. Thank you. So that's now really part of our discussion. That is what Commissioner Horowitz is going to send to SLR. Maybe I was the only one not to understand that.
No, but it's
now that I do, thank you.
Oh, and there was the one other one also, I'm sorry, about
Yeah.
Beecher Road School, to
Yes, that's
change it
what's-
from expansion to potential expansion, renovation, and replacement.
I didn't find that, I think that's important, but I didn't view that as substantive. I just thought it was prudent wordsmithing, so thank you.
Okay, but that would be
Yeah,
the
that
full
should be-
scope of what I would.
Thank you.
Should be
Is that what
included.
was there? You're not voting, you can't.
No, I'm just, all right, okay.
Notwithstanding, we do appreciate your opinion, and thank you. All right, that said, Mr. Schatz?
Mr. Kennedy, I have a question. Just on the Woodbridge Country Club and Woodbridge piece, could you repeat what the change was? Something about there wasn't a plan, then there is a plan?
At the time, this has been a long and winding road, and I think originally the language said.
It's a good song as well.
Yeah.
The
The language had, I don't know what the exact former language was, but the current language is evaluate the Woodbridge Country Club master plan, develop a final plan and implementation schedule for town approval. I think the prior language had something like, encourage a new Woodbridge Country Club
No, that
master plan
sounds
to
good.
be submitted.
The last
and-
line was the
yeah.
one that subject to approval. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good.
And I think also, Commissioner Horowitz, just to your point, and the substantive nature of some of the comments, there are more general statements about complete streets policies and bicycle infrastructure throughout the town. So, I don't think in terms of, this isn't something that's newly introduced in
Thank
the
you.
plan. This
That's
is something that's
helpful.
already contemplated, but perhaps with a little bit more specificity.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So, ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It's done. We're not done for the evening just yet. Town of Woodbridge, Connecticut would like to thank Mr. Andrew Skolnick for his many years of services in the Town Planning and Zoning Commission. Andy, how many years have you been on?
10 approximately.
10. It's been a pleasure learning from you and sitting next to you and having you draft these motions, and the town is very thankful for your service. You're welcome to bring home your name sign tonight.
Thank you, thank you. And I'd like to thank everybody.
Oh, she says you can only take you have to take the tag out, you can't take the whole
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Oh my God.
Thank everybody for their efforts on the current commission. This has been an especially thoughtful group of people, and I certainly appreciate all the work that you were required to do in my absence due to my recusal from important matter these last few months. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Best of luck. Mr. Schatz, I think we're done.
Move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Done. Thank you.